Chapter 3973. If someone saw this scene, they would be so shocked that their eyes would pop out. Because the things that Han Chujiu lost were all priceless treasures. Among them were even the phoenix grass and kunlun wood that he got from Di Mingju in exchange for saving his life. Either of these two treasures would take 1,000 years to mature. And they could only grow in the heavenly Wu Mountain, which was covered with black ice all year round. For thousands of years, 9 out of 10 people who entered the heavenly Wu Mountain would die. Only the immortal emperor could come and go safely. At that time, Di Mingju was poisoned by a mutated nightmare ghost. It was Han Chujiu who combined the Shin musician's skill, Summer Bug's language of ice, provided by Mu Yen with the golden silkworm insect, that detoxified the poison of the Changre. At that time, Di Mingju promised to bring him the phoenix grass and kunlun wood within a year. Less than half a year later, when Di Mingju's immortal emperor realm was stable, he went deep into the heavenly Wu Mountain and picked up the two treasures. Han Chujiu was ecstatic when he got the phoenix grass and kunlun wood. He was afraid of dropping them in his hands, and afraid of melting them in his mouth. He even slept with these two treasures every day, thinking about how to treat them in his dreams. Later he kept saying that he would keep these two treasures. When his baby disciple came up, he would show them off in front of her. But at this moment he did not hesitate to throw these two treasures into the heavenly void cauldron like garbage. He met the shocked eyes of Elder Chang and the others. Han Chujiu widened his eyes and said, "What are you looking at? Di Mingju owes me all the treasures in this cauldron. When he wakes up, I will make him work like an ox and a horse and pay me back 100 times. Elder Chang couldn't help but laugh. After laughing, his nose was a little sour and his eyes were a little red. Because of the curse, little Jiu's appearance looked like a young teenager, and his temperament was getting more childish every year. But he also watched Jun Shang grow up with him. At that time Jun Shang, with a cold face, would call him Grandpa Chang, and little Jiu Gij. Han Chujiu, who was already 1,000 years old, had a black face on the spot, but he still carefully treated Xiao Juanshang's wound. Little Jiu had never changed, he was just a hard mouth and a soft heart. "Pajuan, tell me what's going on. Why did Jun Shang suffer such a heavy injury? Where have you been all this time?" Elder Chang was comforting him when Star Wolf's low and angry voice suddenly came from behind him. At this moment he was grabbing Defying Armies' lapel with one hand and his other hand was clenched into a fist. The anger in his eyes was about to materialize and spit out. If this was not the critical moment for Han Chujiu to treat Jun Shang, Chang Lao has no doubt that Xing Lang will directly punch him. Among the 4 great imperial guards, Defying Armies, Frosty Knight, Ingmei and Star Wolf, Defying Armies has the highest cultivation. He was also the only one among the 4 who had condensed a godhead and could use divine power. Normally, Han Yi and Star Wolf are very apprehensive of Defying Armies, not daring to rashly provoke him. But right now, seeing Di Mingju so heavily injured, the string of reason in Star Wolf's brain completely snapped. He would rather Pajuan die outside like that than to see his revered Jun Shang suffer such a heavy injury. Defying Armies closes his eyes, grabs Star Wolf's wrist, and forcibly pulls down the hand that was clasping his lapel. Only then does he look at Elder Chang and says in a hoarse voice, "I left Jun Shang with the motherly seal. Did Jun Shang receive it?" Chapter 3974. Old Lady Seal? What Laupa Seal? Han Yi and Ing Mei don't know about this matter, and they reveal curious expressions when they hear this. Star Wolf had seen the old granny seal left behind by Defying Armies. However, he didn't know exactly what message was left behind in the matron seal. Now that he heard Defying Armies mention it, he couldn't be bothered to be angry anymore. He hurriedly asked, "What message did you leave for Jun Shang? What are you doing in that damned Yanwu continent? Do you know that because of your recklessness, Jun Shang has fallen into danger time and time again?" Among them, Elder Chang was the only one who did not speak. Instead, he looked at Defying Armies quietly. Defying Armies clenched his hands into fists, then slowly loosened them. After a long while, he said in a slightly hoarse voice, 12 years ago, Jun Shang was seriously injured because of a tribal riot at the border of the polar domain. He went into closed-door training for 5 years before coming out again. You should all still remember this matter, right?" Han Yi knits his brows. "Of course I remember. But what does this have to do with Jun Shang's injury today, and the Laupa seal you left behind?" That was Di Mingju's heaviest injury. They almost thought that Jun Shang wouldn't be able to hold on. For nearly 5 years, Di Mingju has been in seclusion in the forbidden area of the polar domain. It's unknown whether he's alive or dead. Because there had been no news of the sovereign for a long time, the people of the polar domain were anxious, and the nether domain was ready to make trouble. As one of the 4 great emperor's guardians, the 4 of them did not have a good time during that period. Naturally, it left a deep impression on him. Defeating armies continued. You all thought that during those 5 years, Jun Shang stayed in the polar domain's forbidden area and didn't go out, right? Han Yi and the other 2 look at each other, their faces revealing doubt. Isn't that the case? Defeating armies slowly shook his head. That's not the case. In the last year of Jun Shang's seclusion, I stood guard outside the forbidden area as usual, but I suddenly felt a strange energy fluctuation coming from inside. The barrier that prevented people from entering dissipated on its own. After I entered, I discovered. He paused before continuing, Jun Shang has disappeared. What? Han Yi and the others cry out in alarm. Jun Shang disappeared in the polar domain's forbidden area? How is this possible? Star Wolf angrily grabbed Defeating Armies' collar and angrily said, Why did you only say such an important thing today? Don't think that just because you're an old man by Jun Shang's side, I won't dare to beat you up. Star Wolf. Elder Chang berated in a deep voice, let Defeating Armies finish his words first. Only then did Star Wolf angrily let go. Defeating Armies continued, After I entered the forbidden area, I didn't see Jun Shang's figure. I wanted to go out but I found that the barrier had closed again. I was trapped in the forbidden area. I was trapped for a few months. Suddenly, one day the strange energy fluctuation appeared again. His lordship returned to the forbidden area, but he was severely injured. His godhead was on the verge of collapse, and it was even more serious than it is now. Star Wolf fiercely clenched his fists, seeming to want to curse something, but he forcefully endured it in the end. Han Yi says in a low voice, But when Jun Shang came out of seclusion, not only was he unscathed, his cultivation had also advanced. What happened after that? Defeating Armies laughed bitterly and shook his head lightly. In fact, I'm not sure what exactly happened. Because at that time, Jun Shang only appeared for a moment and then disappeared again. It's as if it's being pulled away by some kind of power. At that time I was very scared. I always felt that if I let Jun Shang be pulled away, perhaps Jun Shang would die. I only touched a little bit of the damage caused by that energy fluctuation, and I felt as if my 3 souls and 7 mortal forms were being torn apart, and my godhead was on the verge of collapse. And Jun Shang was in the center of that energy fluctuation. Chapter 3975. Han Yi and the others suck in a mouthful of cold air, their complexions extremely unsightly. Defeating Armies continues, At that time I wanted to break through the barrier and inform Medicine King and Elder Chang, but I failed. The barrier was incomparably strong, I simply couldn't get out. Time passed like a year in the forbidden area. Just like that, another month passed and Jun Shang appeared once again. It's only been 7 years, but Defeating Armies always feels that it's been a very, very long time. Probably because for a very long time, he couldn't tell whether everything that happened in those months was real or an illusory dream. The forbidden area is dark and cold. Only the light coming in from outside the cave's barrier can illuminate the monotonous and desolate furnishings inside. As Defeating Armies is in a daze, a strange energy fluctuation appears again. Immediately after, a familiar figure appears in front of him. Defeating Armies is simply ecstatic. Jun Shang. He rushes over wanting to help Di Mingju up. Jun Shang, where have you been these days? What about your injuries? Di Mingju waves his hand, adjusting his breathing for a while before saying, Ben Jun also couldn't tell what place it was, but the air was filled with the aura of desolation, and there were no fluctuations of spiritual power or immortal power. If Ben Jun didn't guess wrong, it should be the Yanwu continent. It turns out that Di Mingju was forcibly transported to a cave at that time. That cave was dark and cold, without any spiritual power or immortal power, but it was filled with a large amount of desolation. For a spirit cultivator, that kind of environment is simply terrible. But this still isn't the most frightening thing. The most frightening thing is that there's a special arrangement around that cave. Cursed land. And it's the cursed land that only targets the Li Fire bloodline. As long as Di Mingju wants to leave, the cursed land will attack him, slowly destroying his soul and godhead. Di Mingju tried several times, but not only did he not succeed, his injuries worsened instead. It's also because of those injuries and the exhaustion of his divine power. He has no way to resist the erosion of the desolation, and his body becomes weaker and weaker. The first time he returned to the forbidden area of the polar domain, he exhausted his last bit of strength, and didn't hesitate to consume his spiritual essence to fight for a slim chance of survival. But in the end he failed. He was pulled back by that mysterious and strange energy fluctuation, and his injuries worsened. Just as defeating armies had predicted at that time. Unless there's a miracle, Di Mingju will undoubtedly die when he returns to the cave. But what's strange is that the injuries on Di Mingju's body are still very heavy this time, but his godhead has stabilized, and the death energy lingering around his body has also completely dissipated. Defeating armies was overjoyed. "My lord, have you found a way to deal with the land of the cursed god?" Di Mingju is silent for a moment, the tips of his ears inexplicably red. He then says, "Someone helped Ben Jun." When he said this, his usually stern face revealed a rare guilty expression. He dodged defeating armies' gaze. She didn't answer his question about who that person was. Instead she asked softly, "Do you know how to, ability?" Di Mingju is silent for a long time, then he says in a low voice, "To win a girl's favor?" Defeating armies thought he had misheard. What did Jun Shang say? Make a girl happy? Was this their callous and heartless Jun Shang, who could even throw a stunning female cultivator away when she came within half a foot of him? Defeating armies opens his mouth slightly, unable to say a word for a long time. The uneasiness in Di Mingju's eyes gradually turns into disgust. "If you don't know, then go find someone to ask. 3 days later Ben Jun will come ask you again." Chapter 3976. Defeating armies? Wait. Jun Shang, you still want to go to that land of the cursed god? It wasn't easy to get rid of such a dangerous place. How could Jun Shang go back again? Di Mingju keeps a straight face, faintly saying, "That girl is very timid, she can't leave Ben Jun for even a moment. If Ben Jun doesn't go back, what if she cries alone?" Defeating armies? You just asked how to please a girl? Now you say she can't leave you for even a moment? You really don't feel that your words are contradictory? No, the point is, what kind of woman could make Jun Shang care so much about her? He's really curious and he can't help but ask the doubts in his heart. Di Mingju gently touches a piece of vermilion jade on his waist, coldly saying, "What does what kind of woman she is have to do with you? You only need to know that she is Ben Jun's wife." Defeating armies? Oh, is Jun Shang jealous of him? Just because he asked about that woman's situation? If it weren't for the powerful and familiar pressure that Di Mingju is emitting, he would suspect that his Jun Shang has been possessed or impersonated. Moreover, Jun Shang directly calls that woman his wife. It's enough to show that Jun Shang really likes her to the extent that he can't have her? But who is that woman? How is her innate talent? Does she have the qualifications to be the mistress of the polar domain? Is she a spy sent by the enemy to Jun Shang's side? Isn't it too hasty to recognize her as the mistress of the polar domain without knowing any of this? What's more, Elder Chang used the Luo Ming Pan of the Hunyuan River to calculate that Di Mingju's marriage fate is different from that of ordinary people. He will have a woman of destiny that is destined to belong to Jun Shang. And Jun Shang, who possesses the world's one and only sun's spiritual root, can only get the greatest improvement and pry into the peak of the great Tao by combining with the woman of destiny. If Jun Shang marries an ordinary woman from the Yanwu continent, what will happen to the woman of destiny? Defeating armies hesitates to say something, but when he meets Di Mingju's eyes, he can't say any of the words that are on the tip of his tongue. Ever since Di Mingju's mother, the Holy Empress of the Polar Domain by Xingwei, passed away, defeating armies has never seen an expression other than callousness on his Jun Shang's face. He was clearly not a cruel and arrogant person, but he had wrapped himself in a thick layer of ice, unwilling to show even the slightest bit to others. Defeating armies has never seen such a vivid expression on Di Mingju's face. There was joy, faint sweetness, apprehension, anticipation, and even shyness. Such a Jun Shang would no longer be that aloof and remote symbol that supported the polar domain. Instead, he would be a living flesh and blood person. Defeating armies suddenly thought, who is that woman? So what if they were spies? As long as Jun Shang can continue to live like this, what harm is there in letting her stay by Jun Shang's side? Jun Shang. Pajun coughed lightly and changed his question. What is that girl's name? Where do you live in the Yanwu continent? Do you need me to tell Elder Chang about the wedding? Defeating armies' rare nagging gradually stopped, because he finds that his Jun Shang's complexion is very unsightly. After a long while, he heard the man almost grinding his teeth. Ben Jun still doesn't know her name. Cough, cough, cough. Defeating armies almost choked on his own saliva. Jun Shang, how did you meet that girl? Chapter 3977. Di Mingju slightly tilts his head. A few days ago she broke into the cave and was trapped with Ben Jun in the land of the cursed god. Defying Armies hesitantly asks, Jun Shang didn't ask about the girl's identity? I did. Deming Ju grits his teeth even more. He did ask, but she refused to tell him. She was even afraid of him, which makes him annoyed. But he can't get angry. Because he also knows that on the first day he was delirious and went too far. These 2 days he used up all the ways he never did in his life to make that girl change her opinion of him a little. Deming Ju's words are almost jumping out one word at a time. Vague and unwilling to say it out loud. Defying Armies listens for a long time and finally understands. Their Jun Shang forced a little girl? Although it's because of the effects of the land of the cursed god and the barren air invading his internal organs, making Jun Shang look like he's been drugged, delirious and completely out of control. But Defying Armies is still shocked. This is even more of an impact to him than when the poltergeist broke through the enchantment and destroyed the Xiaoshan continent. In vain he just cared that the little girl was a spy sent by the enemy to murder Jun Shang. Defying Armies swallows, not knowing whether to reprimand or comfort their Jun Shang for a moment. After a long while he dryly says, this subordinate will look for someone to ask how to please a girl. Deming Ju nods and can't help but gently stroke the vermilion jade on his waist. Defying Armies glances at it and asks with some doubt, Jun Shang, where did this jade come from? How could it not be crushed in such a powerful energy fluctuation and space distortion? It is reasonable to say that there is a very stable space barrier between the Xiaoshan continent and the Yanwu continent. Things from the two continents can't be exchanged. Especially from the Xiaoshan continent to the Yanwu continent, anything will be crushed in the space barrier passage. And from the Yanwu continent to the Xiaoshan continent, if it's a treasure, Deming Ju can use his divine power to protect it, and there's still a chance to bring it back to the Xiaoshan continent. But this vermilion jade is clearly ordinary, without even a little bit of spirituality. Jun Shang is seriously injured now, and can't use even a tenth of his divine power. But the jade actually passed through the space barrier passage, and followed Jun Shang to the polar domain's forbidden area unscathed. Deming Ju slightly tightens his lips, saying in an indifferent voice, she gave this to Ben Jun. Defying Armies. Jun Shang, are you sure you didn't steal it? Also, you obviously want to show off, so don't pretend that nothing happened. Defying Armies wanted to ask more clearly. He had a feeling that the woman was not simple. With this kind of vermilion jade, it can also save Deming Ju, whose godhead is on the verge of collapse. That was not something an ordinary woman could do. If he could obtain the vermilion jade or ask about the woman's appearance, he might be able to secretly investigate. It's just that, looking at Deming Ju's treasured appearance, Defying Armies also knows that he absolutely won't be able to borrow vermilion jade. It's already been an hour? Deming Ju suddenly realizes something and his expression changes. Ben Jun will go back first. Saying that, without waiting for Defying Armies to react, Deming Ju has already disappeared from where he stood. That strange energy fluctuation was still powerful and terrifying, making it impossible for anyone to approach. But this time, Defying Armies wasn't as worried as he was before. Jun Shang is safe and sound. Moreover, he seems to have a girl he likes. Chapter 3978. Jun Shang has a woman he likes. The polar domain may soon have a new mistress. Miss, did you see it in the sky? Defying Armies didn't say the rest of his words out loud. Instead, he repeated them in his heart. Miss, I will protect your child for the rest of my life. I won't let him end up like you. Jun Shang will definitely be happy. After expressing his gratitude, Defying Armies decided to listen to Jun Shang's words and find someone to ask about how to make a girl happy. Ingmei couldn't do it. She was too cold and never came into contact with girls. The Star Wolf couldn't do it, he was too stupid. His mind was only filled with Jun Shang and couldn't hold anything else. Hanyi can't do it either. Normally he behaves like a dissolute gongzi, but in reality the amount of time he spends with women isn't as long as the amount of time he spends following behind Ingmei. Elder Chang and the King of Medicine were even more out of the question. What Jun Shang wanted was a girl's heart, not a granddaughter. Tiske. Defying Armies frowned in annoyance. Then who should he consult? Was he going to put on a pair of sunglasses and become a playboy? But Defying Armies soon realized that he didn't need to worry about who to consult. Because he couldn't get out. That enchantment had still trapped him. Defying Armies can only wait in place, waiting for Deming Ju to come back 3 days later and open the barrier to let him out. However, 3 days passed. Deming Ju didn't come back. Defying Armies felt uneasy. Another 3 days passed, and there were still no energy fluctuations in the forbidden area. just as defeating armies was burning with anxiety. Suddenly, the air in front of him twisted violently, and the entire forbidden area seemed to have fallen into a spatial vortex. A loud bang resounded in his sea of consciousness. Something burned his brain and then he completely lost consciousness. At this point, defeating armies gently pressed his temple. Under everyone's shocked gazes, he slowly continued in a hoarse voice, "After I woke up that time, I found myself sleeping outside the forbidden area. Everything that had happened in the past few months had become very blurry in my mind. I even thought that it was just a dream. In the dream I saw Junshang seriously injured, and in the dream I heard Junshang tell me that he went to the Yenwu continent and met a woman he liked. I had my suspicions as well. But very quickly Junshang came out. He was completely unscathed and his strength had even gone up a level. I once asked him if he had been to the Yenwu continent, but Junshang didn't have the slightest memory of this. So I became more and more convinced that it was just a dream. The only thing that I care about is probably that piece of cinnabar jade that has appeared on Junshang's waist. I have a vague memory of this piece of vermilion jade in my mind, but every time I try to recall it, my mind will become chaotic as if my memory has been covered by a layer of fog, causing me to unconsciously give up exploring it." Defeating armies' gaze swept over everyone present, his hoarse voice rising slightly. "This situation continued until more than a year ago, when I met Little Master in Junshang's small world. That memory, which had already been blurred, suddenly seemed to have been brushed away by dust and mist, becoming clear all at once. I clearly remember that Junshang was sent to the land of the cursed god of the Yenwu continent by the strange energy of the forbidden area. I remember Junshang saying that he met someone in the land of the cursed god and fell in love with that person. He even had a physical relationship with that woman. And Miss June and the Little Master are from the Yenwu continent." Chapter 3979. Han Yi, Star Wolf, and Ying Mei all suck in a mouthful of cold air, the expressions on their faces one more shocked and incredulous than the other. You're saying that Miss June is the woman who saved Junshang that year? And the Little Master is Junshang's biological son? Defeating armies looks at Elder Chang. The others also look over. Elder Chang sighs softly, "So this is the cause and effect of the matter. If defeating armies hadn't said it, I'm afraid the truth would have been buried. Junshang really owes Miss June and the Little Master too much. It's no wonder that Junshang still doesn't dare to acknowledge the Little Master." Star Wolf's eyes widen. "The Little Master is really Junshang's flesh and blood? Han Yi, Elder Chang, you and Junshang already knew? Ying Mei, what do you mean by not daring to acknowledge?" Elder Chang glances at the closed door and gently shakes his head. After that, he recounted what had happened on the floating island. Elder Chang tries his best to speak in the calmest tone. But Han Yi and the others still have a huge change in expression, their emotions fluctuating. "Li Weiran is actually Junshang's half-brother? Bastard. I knew that Li Weiran, that bastard, wasn't a good thing. He even dared to pretend to be the Little Master's biological father, Pei. Elder Chang, why didn't you tell us about such an important matter?" Elder Chang gives them a sidelong glance, saying, "Miss June's cultivation is still not high enough. She can't ascend to the Xiaoshan continent. If people knew that the Little Master is Junshang's biological son, who knows how much trouble would arise. You're not allowed to speak of this matter, do you hear me? If I find out that any of you leaked it, especially if Miss June and the Little Master find out, you should know the consequences." The three of them shiver, nodding in unison. Han Yi suddenly remembers. The last time Elder Chang came back from the floating island, his entire person has become mysterious. One moment he discusses with them how to make the wedding grand, the next moment he asks how the abandoned scumbag can get the forgiveness of his wife and child. At that time Han Yi thought that Elder Chang was too worried about the alliance between the demon race and the nether realm, so his mind wasn't normal. It turns out that the abandoned scumbag that Elder Chang spoke of is actually Junshang. But thinking about it, their Junshang seems to be quite a scumbag. Miss June was so young 7 years ago. She was probably pregnant before she even reached the marriageable age. Not only did she get pregnant before marriage, she even forgot about him. If he was Miss June, he would definitely hate this dog of a man who had abandoned her to death. Poo. What dog man? That was their Junshang. She recalled what Chang Lao had said. Miss June had threatened to chop and castrate Xiaobao's biological father if she really met him. Han Yi couldn't help but shiver. The most important thing right now is to help their Junshang leave a good impression in front of Miss June. Otherwise, what if the polar domain's mistress and heir that are already at the tip of his tongue fly away? As Han Yi is lost in his thoughts, he is suddenly ruthlessly pinched on his waist. Han Yi couldn't help but let out a blood-curdling screech and his whole body jumps up. "Little Shadow, why are you twisting?" Halfway through his complaint, he meets Ing Mei's chilly gaze. Han Yi immediately cowers and promptly says with a smile, "Little Shadow, you pinched me so hard just now, does it hurt? Do you want me to rub it for you?" Ing Mei's face was still cold as he said, "Men are not good things." Han Yi. Chapter 3980. Little Shadow, if you feel injustice for Miss June, why are you angry at him? He was very innocent, okay. He was about to speak. The door opened with a squeak. Han Chujio staggered out from inside. "Little Jio." Elder Chang quickly stepped forward to support him. "How are you? Why do you look so bad?" Han Chujio stared at him and said in a bad tone, "You try to consume all the divine power in your body and show me your face? That bastard Di Mingju, you wasted so many of my treasures. When you get better, I will not let you off." When he said this, he almost blew his beard and stared at him. However, his face was too handsome and cute, so he didn't have any momentum. When Elder Chang saw that he still had the strength to curse, he was relieved. "How is Jun Shang?" Han Chujio took out an elixir and swallowed it, then coldly said, "Don't worry, he won't die. After a year and a half he will almost be cured." But what? Han Chujio slowly converged the look on his face and said in a deep voice, "This kid's breath of the God Punisher curse is getting heavier and heavier. He is relying on his powerful spirit to suppress it. If he continues like this, once the God Punisher curse backfires, the consequences will be unimaginable." Elder Chang's face changed and his voice rose a bit. "How can it be?" Han Chujio said with a cold face, "Why not? Others may not know, but don't you know how terrible the real curse is? Once you are infected, you can't get rid of it for life. When Di Mingju was a child, he was infected with the God Punisher curse. Later by the Divine Empress forcibly expelled it. But in the end he was still infected with the curse. If he doesn't come into contact with the curse after that, it will be fine. But 7 years ago, Di Mingju was attacked by the curse in the border tribe. Later, I don't know where he came across the land of curse. Even his fire blood was infected by the power of the curse. Later, I don't know what kind of luck he had, but he didn't trigger the curse in his body. But good luck can only happen once or twice. The deeper he is infected with the curse, the higher the possibility of the curse relapse. If that day really comes, even I won't be able to save him." Han Chujio spread out his hands and said, "When the time comes, let that kid resign himself to his fate. Otherwise, come with this old man to the Medicine King Hall to keep you company, regaining your youth, relaxing and maintaining your health. How interesting." "Little Jio." Elder Chang shouted in a low voice, interrupting his nonsense. Then she could not help but reach out her hand and gently pat his head, saying softly, "Little Nine, there will be a chance. You will definitely have a chance to get rid of the curse. Don't forget, your precious disciple will be here soon." When he mentioned his precious disciple, Han Chujio. But when he remembers that the treasures he wanted to show off were all wasted on Di Mingju, he gnashes his teeth in hatred. I tell you, I Diju I Jujio. Xiao Chang Han Xiao Jiu Tian, Xiao Zhang Xiao Lao to S Chang. Chang. Elder Chang nodded with a smile. Han Xiao Chang Han Xiao to Han Xiao again Xiao. Han Chang to Chang. Han Chujio wanted to say something, but suddenly, a loud bang was heard in the room. Their expressions changed and they hurriedly rushed in. Everyone's expression changed when they saw the scene inside. "Jun Shang, what are you doing? Why did you activate the Chengkuan mirror?" Chapter 3981. Di Mingju, whose face is still pale and without a trace of blood, has stood up and walked to the Chengkuan mirror. The originally dim bronze mirror surface of the Chengkuan mirror is now emitting a white light. Obviously, the space-time passage has been opened. Di Mingju doesn't even wear a coat. He only wears a thin, blood-stained undergarment and goes to the Chengkuan mirror. Defeating armies rushes over and stands in front of the Chengkuan mirror. "Jun Shang, you are seriously injured and your godhead is unstable. You must not travel through the space barrier again." Di Mingju's face is cold, but there seems to be a fierce and urgent flame burning in his eyes. "Get lost." "Jun Shang, what happened in the end? Even if it's an urgent matter, wait until the injury is healed before going." Han Chujio's nose is crooked in anger. If it weren't for Elder Chang holding him back, he would have rushed over and grabbed Di Mingju's hair. "Bastard, you wasted so many of my treasures and you still dare to court death. Damn, if you want to die so much, Lousy will help you now." Elder Chang quickly pulls back the jumping Han Chujio and anxiously says, Jun Shang, if you have something to do, just tell us. You don't need to do it yourself. Di Mingju raises his hand and waves out his energy, directly pushing defeating armies away. His lips overflow with a little blood. But he doesn't even bother to wipe it. His figure flashes and he is already in front of the Qingquan mirror. Jun Shang. You can't. Xing Lang rushes over and hugs his leg, begging in a hoarse voice, Jun Shang, what are you going to do? This subordinate will do it for you. I only ask you to take care of your own life. They know very well what the collapse of Godhead means. Di Mingju's life was saved by Han Chujio's painstaking efforts. A little carelessness and his old injury will relapse and he will disappear in a puff of smoke. Di Mingju snaps, let go. Han Yi kneels down, Jun Shang, please think twice. Ing Mei kneels down, Jun Shang, please think twice. Defeating armies also slowly kneels on the ground, Jun Shang, please think twice. Xing Lang chokes with sobs. Jun Shang, if you don't care about your life and go alone, why don't you kill this subordinate first? Di Mingju closes his eyes, the voice that comes out of his mouth is indescribably hoarse and weak. Mayan is calling me, I'm going to find her. I promised that I would never leave her alone. I would never let anyone hurt her. However, he broke his promise. In the land of the cursed god, he had sensed that Mu Yen was in danger, and he had also heard the call from the Void Spirit Ring. However, he couldn't get out. Even if he disregarded the loss of his own divine energy and the collapse of his godhead to risk his life to break the land of the cursed god's shackles, it was too late. No more spiritual power fluctuations came from the Void Spirit Ring. All the vows, all the promises, all became a joke at that moment. It was like laughing at his stupidity and weakness. Di Mingju also realized it at that moment. Everything could be a trap. He didn't know what had happened to Mu Yen that she would fall into such a desperate situation. But everything was too much of a coincidence. Over the past few days, defeating armies had been trapped in the land of the cursed god and could not leave. He could not send any messages, but he did not run into any danger. But on the eve of Mu Yan's accident, the soul lamp suddenly fluctuated. Even defeating armies doesn't know why his soul lamp became weak. And Di Mingju, who went to the land of the cursed god to look for defeating armies, was trapped inside. He couldn't go to Mu Yan's side when she needed him the most. Several people are startled when they hear that. Chapter 3982. Suddenly, Ing Mei points at the Void Spirit Ring on Di Mingju's finger. His complexion greatly changes and his voice trembles. Miss June, what happened to her? Why does the Void Spirit Ring have so many cracks? The Void Spirit Ring was made by Di Mingju using his own and Mu Yan's hair, and then linking it with a wisp of his soul. Even if they were in different worlds, they could still sense each other. When one side was in trouble, the other side would use their God essence/soul essence to prolong the other's life and rescue them. With my spirit, I will save your soul. I will use my divine essence/soul essence to nourish your life force. The ethereal spirit ring was indestructible, impervious to fire and water. Even if the void spirit ring took over another body, it would follow the soul. Only under one circumstance would the ethereal spirit ring shatter. That was, if one of the two sides was like a lamp that had run out of oil, even the gods would not be able to save him. Now Di Mingju's godhood has stabilized. However, cracks had appeared in the void spirit ring. What did that mean? The spiritual energy on Di Mingju's body vibrates, sending the star wolf flying. Jun Shang? At this moment, even Elder Chang's expression changed. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "My lord, the void spirit ring is broken, and the 3 souls and 7 spirits are scattered. It's useless even if you rush over. Let's go to the floating island and bring Miss June back, okay? Shall we bring her back and let little Jiu treat her?" Xing Lang desperately nodded his head. "Jun Shang, this subordinate swears to you that even if I die, I will bring Miss June back safely. Jun Shang, this subordinate is begging you not to go." Di Mingju's hand is placed on the Qingquan mirror, his expression cold and calm just like in the past. However, what he said made Elder Chang and the others' hearts sink bit by bit. Since the 3 souls and 7 spirits are scattered, I'll give my 3 souls to her and use my 7 spirits to complete her. I'm at the end of my rope, so I'll use my divine essence to nurture her back bit by bit. I am Yinyan's husband, Xiaobao's father, but I've done far too little for them. Instead, I've let them suffer for so many years, yet I've paid no attention to them, and I don't know if they know or not. This time, I won't abandon Yanyan again. Even if I die, I want to die with her. Di Mingju lifts up the broken void spirit ring, and gently kisses it on the lips. He then looked at the people in the room and said in a hoarse voice, "I'm sorry, I'm not a good emperor. If I don't come back this time, you guys can wear sunglasses and become Emperor Fu." Junshang. In the midst of the mournful cries, Di Mingju's figure suddenly enters the Chengkuan mirror, disappearing without a trace. The room fell into a deathly silence. Han Chujio reacted first. "Idiot, what are you doing? Go and chase after him. Isn't it just a small floating island? If he flipped it upside down without knowing where it was, wouldn't he be able to find two people? As long as you find him, even if it's two corpses, bring them back to me. I don't believe that I, the dignified sacred ancestor medicine king, can't even protect this kid Di Mingju's life." Han Chujio's loud shout made the few people, who originally felt that the sky was falling down, feel enlightened. Star Wolf was the first to rush over and activate the heaven and earth mirror. He even forgot to use his immortal power to protect himself. In a blink of an eye, only Chang Lao and Han Chujio were left in the room. Han Chujio, "Brother, aren't you going?" Chang Lao gently shook his head. "I'm old, I'll only be a burden if I go. What's more, the polar domain still needs someone to stabilize the army's morale. If I leave, what if someone takes the opportunity to make trouble?" Han Chujio pursed her lips and suddenly asked, "If that kid Di Mingju really can't come back, will you support sunglasses and become Emperor Fu?" Chapter 3983. Chang Lao's eyelids slightly drooped, covering the light in his eyes. He didn't speak. Just when Han Chujio thought that he want answer, a faint voice came to her ears. "The Emperor of the polar domain may change, but no matter where and when, I will only assist one emperor. Who are the others? Are they qualified for me to support them?" Han Chujio froze and looked at Chang Lao in surprise. Then he couldn't help but laugh. It's just that his laughter has the unique sound of a young man. Not only does it not seem bold and rough, but it is also immature and cute. So, after laughing twice, he stopped with a black face. "This damned damned it," Han Chujio calmed herself down and hooked her arm around Chang Lao's neck. Then she said in a clear voice, "Gu, you have been as kind as Mithria for the past 2 years. I thought your temper had been polished, and you only know how to work like a horse for the Emperor of the polar domain. Only today did I realize that you are still the unstoppable Chang'ing from back then." Chang Lao glanced at him. Han Chujio softly said, "Brother, rest assured that Di Mingju will be fine. I divined his fortune in the past, he still has a long life." "Chang Lao, how come I don't know when little Jiu learned divination?" Han Chujio shamelessly said, "In this world I am the only one who doesn't want to learn, but there is nothing that I, Han Chujio, cannot learn." Chang Lao patted his forehead, then stepped forward and gently wiped the bronze mirror with his old hand. His voice was soft, with infinite exhaustion and disappointment. "Guang Juanshang cannot live. It was not easy to find Miss June and Little Master. If they die, Guang Juanshang will lose half of his life. Even if they are saved, I'm afraid he will only be a walking corpse without any happiness." Han Chujio couldn't bear to see Chang Lao so sad. She racked her brains to comfort him. Suddenly her body became light and she felt dizzy. When she recovered, she was already back in the Medicine King Hall. Bang! Han Chujio heavily punched the alchemy furnace beside him. His handsome and lovely face was distorted. Damn curse! Forcefully trapping him in this Medicine King Hall to death, all alone, powerless to do anything. How many more years was he going to be trapped? To the extent that he, a 7-foot man, became a baby in swaddling clothes? Han Chujio took a deep breath and said while gritting her teeth, "Don't be angry, don't be angry. If he died of anger, wouldn't that be fulfilling that bastard's wish? What's there to be angry about? Anyway, my precious disciple is about to arrive. She can grow the red spider lily and the yellow springs fruit. It would definitely be able to bring him out of this cold grave." Han Chujio slowly closed her eyes and slammed her whole body on the low couch. "Wait." Suddenly he jumps up from the couch. "Didn't Di Mingju say that he likes my precious disciple? Then who the hell is Miss June? Di Mingju, you fucking dare to play double dealing with me, abandon me after you started treading on 2 boats. Han Chujio gritted her teeth and kept walking around in the Medicine King Hall. The flames in her eyes almost spurted out. If Di Mingju was in front of him at this moment, he would not be able to help but tear him into pieces. "Hee, a fickle big peacock like you wants to marry my precious disciple, dream on." The northernmost part of the floating island is the boundless Bohai Sea. But few people know if you continue to go north along the Bohai Sea, what will you see? Chapter 3984. It's the edge of the floating island. Or it's another vast continent. Even Lan Xiaozi and Lan Chushi, who created the floating island, don't know about this. Because no one has ever reached the edge of the floating island. Even if it's a profound immortal powerhouse, if they want to explore the edge of the floating island, they will fall into an endless flight. The mountains, deserts, and seas surrounding the floating island are so vast, so distant, that people will never be able to touch the end. The edge of the floating island, for most of the cultivators on the island, is an eternal mystery. But most of them obviously don't include Di Mingju. He doesn't even need to deliberately explore, he only needs to release his divine sense to know what the edge of the floating island is. It's a passageway with layers of spatial barriers. As long as you get close, you'll be confused by the folded space, thinking that you've been flying on the sea. But you won't realize that you've actually reached the edge of the island. These barriers wrap up the entire floating island, isolating it from the world and forming a protection. So that the people on the island won't fall from the edge because of some accident, and eventually be torn apart by the spacetime crack. This is the recognition and gift of the heavenly Tao to this refuge world created by Lan Xiaozi. Bystanders can't find such barriers, but Di Mingju's eyes can see them clearly. At this time he's searching inch by inch along the barrier to the north of the Bohai Sea. Di Mingju's injuries are extremely serious. When he passed through the spatial barrier passage through the Chengquan mirror, he was torn apart by the spacetime power. Right now, his whole body is burning hot, and even his thoughts have become chaotic and unclear. In the depths of his soul, there seems to be something struggling, clamoring to rush out. Di Mingju doesn't know how long he's been searching, whether it's from dawn to dusk, or from dusk to dawn. His divine sense is clearly so powerful, covering every inch of the seabed and sea surface, but he hasn't found any trace. The remorse and pain in his heart deepens little by little as time goes by. Wherever his divine sense goes, even an ant can be detected, but he can't find any trace of Mu Yan. Does that mean that Mu Yan has already? Di Mingju doesn't dare to think of such an ending. Just when he's almost in despair, he finds an isolated island in the Bohai Sea. It was an extremely small and inconspicuous island. The surroundings were bare except for a sparse patch of iron leaf wood in the center of the island. Iron leaf wood was a very common spirit plant on the floating island and the cultivation continent. Other than being hard, it didn't have any other effect. Previously, Di Mingju's divine sense had swept over this place several times, but he hadn't detected anything unusual, so he had swept past. But when he swept his gaze over the island again, his movements paused. There were a few sea beasts lying on the sand and rocks around the small island. This was a very common thing. Sea beasts would naturally choose to rest on small islands. However, the strange thing was that there were simply too many sea beasts on this island. Moreover, every single one of them was of an extremely high level, and their bodies were emitting powerful spiritual fluctuations. It seemed to be coveting something. But on a small isolated island, there was only the iron leaf wood, an ordinary spirit plant that didn't bear fruit. What could the sea beasts covet? Di Mingju withdrew his thoughts and the divine power within his body surged. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived on the isolated island. The roaring sea beasts surrounding the iron fir forest feel Di Mingju's aura. He was immediately frightened into silence. Chapter 3985. Each and every one of them has a horrified expression in their eyes. Di Mingju doesn't pay attention to them, and instead quickly enters the ironwood forest. Almost as soon as he enters the forest, an aura that was originally shielded by some kind of energy is reflected in his mind along with his divine sense. Di Mingju raises his hand and firmly clasps the ironwood branch. He clenches his teeth, trying his best to control himself so that his godhead doesn't collapse due to the violent fluctuations of emotions. In the sparse ironwood forest, several sea beasts have already drilled in, surrounding an open space in the middle of the forest. They bare their sharp fangs, their huge vertical pupils revealing a greedy and longing light as they slowly approach the open space. Drool drips all over the ground. And in the center of the open space, there's a little boy holding a sword. His small body is covered in blood, his clothes are tattered, and there's a half-conscious rabbit lying at his feet. When the sea beasts approached, he was already so tired that he couldn't even lift the sword in his hand. When he sheds the sword, he has to rely on the body of the sword to barely stand. But that little back is still perfectly straight. That pair of icy blue eyes are so young and tender, but they're filled with reckless determination and madness. Because he can't retreat. Behind him lies a woman with a cold body. Her eyes are closed and her chest isn't moving up and down as if she's dead. That's his mother. If he retreats, his mother will be eaten by these sea beasts. Di Mingju takes a step forward, and the pressure of an immortal emperor is suddenly released. The sea beasts coveting the delicious food don't even have time to make a sound before they're torn to pieces, turning into a bloody mist that dissipates into the air. Di Mingju walks towards that little figure. But as soon as he takes a step closer, a sharp and cold sword light whistles over. He doesn't dodge and lets the blade cut him. Once and then again. One sword and then another. It's clearly the flesh that's hurt, but the real pain is in his heart. It's like it's going to explode, making his vision blur. Finally, Di Mingju walks in front of the little boy, and reaches out to hold him in his arms. That little figure is still desperately struggling. His icy blue eyes are bloodshot and tyrannical, but they're almost unfocused. He's already reached his limit. Only the willpower to protect his mother is supporting him. Xiaobao, it's all right. Daddy is here. Xiaobao, you've done well. Mother will be fine. Let Daddy save her, okay? The violent struggle in his arms gradually came to a stop. The pair of ice-blue eyes that had lost focus gradually reflected his figure. His chapped lips opened and closed slightly, but what came out was a voice so hoarse that it could break one's heart. Father. Di Mingju only feels a hand clenching his heart, making him almost unable to breathe. It's Daddy. As soon as the words left his mouth, he realized how choked they were. Xiaobao, Daddy's here. Tears slowly gathered in her icy blue eyes, and silently rolled down her cheeks drop by drop. Why did you only come now? A child's voice was supposed to be childish, crisp, and carefree. However, Little Treasure's voice was so hoarse that it made one's heart feel like it was about to be crushed. I've been calling Daddy. I've been calling Daddy to save Mother, save Martial Uncle? Why didn't you appear? Daddy is bad. I hate Daddy. Mother has lost so much blood, Martial Uncle and Martial Uncle as well as Martial Granduncle, they're all dead. Xiaobao couldn't do anything and could only pray to heaven to let Daddy come faster. But Daddy didn't come, why? Chapter 3986. Why haven't you come? Why can't you hear Xiaobao's voice? Didn't you say that you would always be by Xiaobao and Mother's side? As he finished speaking, little Bao was unable to support himself any longer, and his little body trembled violently. Tears rolled down her cheeks like a broken dam. The heart-wrenching cries were heart-wrenching. Di Mingju only feels that his heart aches so much that he's almost unable to breathe. He fiercely hugs the little body that's silently weeping and trembling in his arms. I'm sorry, it's Daddy's fault. Daddy came late. I'm sorry. Xiaobao opened his mouth wanting to say something. Suddenly he felt a warm liquid dripping onto his neck. Her father's body was so hot that he didn't even have an outer robe on him. He was only wearing a blood-stained inner robe. He suddenly realized something. Daddy was injured. It's not that father doesn't want to come and save Nyangqin, he must have been held up by something. Also, such a powerful and lofty father had cried, crying and apologizing to him. Xiaobao tightens her grip on Di Mingju's sleeve, burying her whole body in his embrace. Choking with sobs, she said, Father, Mother didn't die, right? Mother, Martial Uncles and Martial Uncles won't die, right? Di Mingju doesn't know what happened to Mayan and the others. But at this moment, the cause and effect were no longer important to him. He nodded without hesitation. Yes, Father will definitely save Mother. Even if he has to risk his life, even if he has to go against the heavens, he must let Mayan survive. Listening to the man's firm words, Xiaobao's heart finally relaxed. His consciousness began to blur, and his eyelids gradually became heavy. But his little hand is still clutching Di Mingju's lapel, and he says in a low voice, Xiaobao is so scared, but Daddy is here, so I'm not afraid. Di Mingju kisses Xiaobao on the forehead and cautiously sends him and the fat rabbit into the small world. Xiaobao's injuries were all superficial wounds. Moreover, he had a celestial physique, so he only needed to rest in a place with sufficient celestial chi for a period of time, and he would be able to recover on his own. Now that he had fainted, the most important thing was that his body and mind were heavily injured. He had also fought with the sea beasts for a few days and nights, and his celestial energy was overdrawn. The small world was tailor-made by Di Mingju for Xiaobao. There was plenty of immortal chi inside and there was no danger. Most importantly, even if his godhead collapsed and his soul perished, this small world that he had separated would still be safe and sound. Moreover, this small world was originally sealed off, and outsiders were unable to enter or detect it. But so long as little Bao attained the peak of the mysterious immortal realm, Then he would be able to open it up by himself and wait for the arrival of his heavenly tribulation to advance into the immortal king realm. This small world can be said to be the last thing that Di Mingju has left for Xiaobao. After sending Xiaobao away, Di Mingju steps forward and picks Mayan up. The coldness and lack of vitality in his hand caused a buzzing sound to ring in his mind. His blood and energy surged and his godhead collapsed to the ground. Di Mingju takes a deep breath, clasps Mayan's hand, and tentatively sends a bit of divine essence into her body. He sensed that the divine essence he sent was being absorbed by Mayan's body. Di Mingju's spirit shakes, and without the slightest hesitation, he instills the spiritual energy that supports his cultivation and life into that ice-cold and thin body. As time goes by, Mu Yan's cold body begins to warm up. There was still no pulse or heartbeat in his body, but there was a faint flow of spiritual power in his meridians and dantian. Di Mingju, on the other hand, fiercely vomits out a large mouthful of blood because he has consumed a large amount of his divine essence. Chapter 3987. His injuries were extremely serious, and his godhead was forcibly suppressed by the medicine king Han Chujio, using various heavenly treasures. At this time, his divine essence was greatly consumed, and his godhead began to collapse again. Once it collapsed, it would be beyond redemption. But he couldn't care about anything else. Although Mu Yan's condition has improved, there's still no heartbeat, and even her divine soul has been torn apart. Di Mingju doesn't understand medicine, so he doesn't know how to treat such a near-death injury. All he can do is exchange his life and lifespan for her. If he doesn't have enough divine essence, then he will also block his 3 souls and 7 spirits. The only woman he deeply loves in this life. He already owes his Yan so much, how can he just watch her die in front of him? Di Mingju wipes the blood from the corner of his mouth, and lowers his head to lightly kiss Mu Yan's cold and soft lips. Then he grabs her wrist again and injects his divine essence. Guji. Just then, a furry head bursts out from Mu Yan's waist. Its big round eyes look at Di Mingju, then it spreads its little wings and lets out a cheerful cry, "Daddy?" As it cries, it flaps its wings excitedly and pounces towards his face. Di Mingju has to stop the infusion of divine essence, and grabs its hind legs, pulling it down from his body. The little chick grumbles in dissatisfaction, and tilts its head. Why doesn't Daddy play kiss, hug and raise Huang Huang high? His line of sight turns and he sees Mu Yan lying on the ground. His big eyes suddenly brighten, and he reveals an expression of sudden realization, Guji. Woof woof woof. I know Mommy is sleeping, so Daddy also wants to sleep with Mommy, right? Good good. Huang Huang also wants to sleep. Daddy, let's sleep together. Di Mingju is the only 2 people in this world who can completely understand the little chick's language. For a moment, he's dizzy from the little guy's series of sleep. Even that tragic and painful feeling just now seems to have lightened a lot. Only this little guy can be so naive and happy at any time, right? Di Mingju throws the little chick aside and grabs Mu Yan's hand again. He is about to inject his divine essence. Suddenly, he feels that his eyelids are getting heavier and there seems to be a voice in his head saying, "Sleep, sleep and you can get everything you want." Damn it. How could he sleep at a time like this? How could he not be able to control himself and want to sleep? Just because Huang Huang said it wanted to sleep with its parents? Was there really such an evil creature in this world? In the end, Di Mingju still can't resist the heavy drowsiness. He collapses beside Mayan and closes his eyes. The last thing he remembered was little chick happily squeezing between his parents, pulling out a piece of floral cloth to make a blanket for himself before closing his eyes. There seemed to be a melodious song coming from the distant horizon. Life was like a dream. The long and ancient time turned to nothing in an instant. There was love in life, and this hatred had nothing to do with the moon or the wind. Holding hands and waiting for 1,000 years in vain, life after life, the wrong marriage. My lord, are you really going to spend so much money to buy the child in that bitch's womb? Don't tell me that you're going to go back on your word after we dig the child out? The whistling wind brushed past his ears, accompanied by hushed whispers. Di Mingju slowly opens his eyes. What he saw was a middle-aged woman with a greedy expression. She was bowing to a man in black. Chapter 3988. This is the deposit. As long as you do things properly, there will naturally be benefits for you. Remember to cut off her entire womb palace and give it to me. The child in her belly must not be harmed in the slightest. Don't worry, Darren, we absolutely guarantee to deliver the fresh and living child to Darren's hands. Hee, we've heard that a 7-month-old baby still wrapped in a placenta is the most nourishing thing for a woman. The conversation between the two people trickles into Di Mingju's ears. It sobers up his somewhat muddled consciousness. What is this place? The spiritual energy has dried up, and the air of desolation is overflowing. The two people in front of him don't even have half a spiritual root. This is the Yanwu continent? And the two people in front of him are talking about buying and selling the baby in a woman's belly. Why is he here? Mu Yan is seriously injured and her life is hanging by a thread. How can he waste time in a place like this? Di Mingju is about to surge his divine power and tear the space to go back. But he suddenly finds something wrong. He can't use his divine power. Even though he's standing next to the two people talking, they don't notice his existence at all. Di Mingju is startled and reaches out to brush the trees on the side. But his hand passes through them. He's not a real entity? Gujiji. A familiar voice comes to his ears. Immediately after, a fluffy yellow dumpling jumps onto his shoulder and gives him a silly smile. Daddy, Daddy, Huang Huang found you. Di Mingju snaps. What's going on? Where did you take Benjun? What do you want to do? The little chick blinks, then starts chattering nonsense again. But Di Mingju understands. You're saying this is Mu Yan's dream? The little chick tilts its head, somewhat hesitant. Probably, yes. Huang Huang doesn't understand. Huang Huang doesn't know. It was Daddy who said he wanted to sleep with Mommy. Huang Huang didn't cause any trouble. It sheepishly says as it flaps its little wings. Di Mingju doesn't get angry, but instead falls into contemplation. He heard Mu Yan say that the little chick has an extraordinary origin, and may be the young master of Wushang Palace. And it has too many secrets. It seems to be born with good luck. Mayan had been on the brink of death several times, thinking that she was going to die, but the little chick had saved her by accident. Would it be the same this time? Mu Yan's dantian and meridians can already operate, but her soul is split into pieces. Did the little chick accidentally send him here? Is it because Mu Yan's broken soul is here? Divine essence could maintain the vitality of Mu Yan's body, but it couldn't condense her divine soul and let her come back to life. And the key to Mu Yan's survival lies here. Di Mingju slowly steadies his mind, and begins to use his divine sense to explore the surroundings. Yes, he could not use his divine power, and his body could not touch the physical objects around him, but his consciousness still existed. However, the amount of divine sense he could use was very little, and he could only detect the general situation within a few miles. Is this Mu Yan's dream? It seemed like it, but it also seemed like it wasn't. Although the ability to enter one's dream was rare, it wasn't as if no one in the Xiaoxian continent had ever cultivated it. However, the scene he saw in the dream was blurry, dreamy, and unstable. It would definitely not be as stable as the scene in front of him. Moreover, when entering a dream, one could use immortal energy but not divine sense, because a person's dream did not have a physical body. Therefore, this is not Mu Yan's dream. Chapter 3989. Therefore, this isn't Mu Yan's dream. Rather, it's the great illusionary land. This is the dreamlike, small world that Mu Yan has created. Di Mingju doesn't have the time to marvel at Mu Yan's ability to create such a fake world with her cultivation. At this moment, he's more concerned about what is hidden in this small world. Where is Mu Yan's soul? His divine sense sweeps through the row of houses behind the woman, finally stopping at a dilapidated house. There's the breath of a young woman there. No, not just one but two. But the other one is very small and weak, attached to the woman. That's a fetus. Di Mingju doesn't know why his heart sinks, and he subconsciously wants to check on the young pregnant woman's situation. That greedy woman has just received the gold coins, and she turns around to walk inside the house. As she walks, she shouts, "Have you prepared the scissors and the food box? What are you dilly-dallying for? Don't you know that the noble person is in a hurry to get the goods? If you delay any longer, that little slut will wake up." Soon, several figures rush out of the kitchen, heading towards the dilapidated house. Mother, rest assured, so what if she wakes up? That little slut's hands and feet are tied by us, and she doesn't have any cultivation. How could she escape from our palms? I really didn't expect that the fetus in that little slut's belly could be sold for such a high price. Mother, do you think we should find a few more men for that little slut, raise a few more children? When the time comes, we won't have anything we want? They all laugh excitedly. While discussing this cruel matter, they excitedly and eagerly push open the door of the dilapidated house, without the slightest bit of guilt or fear on their faces. When the door is pushed open, Di Mingju finally sees the scene inside the house. With just one glance, his eyes suddenly turn crimson red. The anger in his chest almost burns away all of his reason. Even the entire great illusionary land can't bear his anger and begins to tremble and collapse. GGGG. The little chick is so scared that it hides in Di Mingju's arms. Father save me, mother save me, it's going to collapse, I can't sleep. The yellow-colored demonic voice pierces his ears, making Di Mingju's almost shattered reason slowly return. He clenched his fists tightly, closed his eyes, and told himself over and over again that he could not lose control. Only then did he manage to suppress his surging anger. This is the great illusionary land created by Mayan. It's fake. He must not destroy this small world, otherwise Mu Yen would really be beyond saving. However, every time he looked at the scene in front of him, his eyes would turn bloodshot, and he would almost lose control of himself. In the messy, run-down house, the thin and frail girl's abdomen bulged out. Her thin arms and legs were tied tightly to the bedpost. That girl is Mayan. It was Mu Yen who was carrying Xiao Bao, so fragile, so young, so helpless. The few people who entered the door approached her with greedy and cruel faces. They took out scissors and cut open her clothes. The girl suddenly came to her senses. Seeing this scene, a terrified expression appeared on his face. She cried and begged. She struggled with all her might, but she could only watch helplessly as these people used knives to cut open her stomach. The intense pain caused her to faint again and again, only to wake up again and again. From begging and crying at the beginning to despair and resentment. She looks at everyone in front of her with eyes full of hatred, and there's a bone-piercing killing intent in them. The woman meets her eyes and immediately yells, "Little slut, what are you looking at? You've done something shameful, and you still have the face to glare at me." Chapter 3990. Shameless thing, having an illicit relationship at such a young age and even getting pregnant. You've completely lost the face of our Su family. Right now, I'm helping you get rid of this evil creature in your stomach so that you can marry again in the future. That's for your own good. It's fine if you don't know how to be grateful, but you actually dare to glare at me. He really is an ungrateful wretch. The moment the fetus was cut out, everything in front of him was covered in blood red. The world spun and the stars moved. The scenes in front of him changed rapidly. Time seemed to flow at its fastest speed. But it was still enough for people to clearly see everything that had happened in that short 10 years. The helpless girl was spurned, schemed against, and hurt because she got pregnant out of wedlock. The baby in her womb had been dug out, and this filled her with hatred. However, he couldn't help but feel grateful to the woman who saved him from the fire pit and helped him take revenge. However, she did not know that the woman who saved her was the culprit who murdered her. She had been schemed against again and again, sent to Wanrenku and used as a stepping stone. He was so young, but he had tasted all the suffering in the world. But in the end, the only thing that remained of his sincerity was deceived and used. She knew the truth in despair. She knew that the woman she treated as her best friend was actually the murderer who killed the child in her womb. The only reason for all this was that the child she was carrying was a fairy body. As long as he refined the child into a pill, he would be able to ascend and become an immortal. In the midst of endless despair, she chose to self-destruct. Fresh blood dyed the entire great illusionary land red. It was her blood, her tears. It was a grievance she couldn't erase from her previous life, no matter how glorious and confident she was in this life. GGG. Batty, batty, batty. I'll kill the bastard who bullied my mother. The little chick was so angry that it flapped its wings and danced about madly. It wanted nothing more than to slice Gong Chenxue and the others into pieces. It's just a pity that it's the same as Di Mingju, only a passerby in this great illusionary land. It's a shadow without a physical body. Therefore, after fighting for a long time, he was so tired that he was gasping for breath, but there was nothing he could do. At this moment, everything in the great illusionary land had returned to the beginning. It was still the greedy woman and the man in black who were discussing selling the fetus. There was also the young girl who was tied up in the rundown house, experiencing heart-wrenching pain and despair over and over again. This was an endless cycle of reincarnation, a nightmare that could not see the light of day. And Mu Yan's 3 souls and 7 spirits were currently sinking into this nightmare, repeatedly tossing and turning, wasting time until her soul flew away and scattered. Little Ing Hua is tired from fighting, so he throws himself at Di Mingju's feet, wanting to seek comfort from his father. However, just as she rushes under Di Mingju, she feels something dripping on her body. The little chick raised its head and let out a low cry. "Dad, are your eyes watery? Daddy, are you crying?" Di Mingju slowly crouches down. He seemed to want to reach out and stroke the little chick. However, he curled up as if he was in extreme pain. It hurts. It was really painful. It was as if his heart was about to explode. What did he see? What exactly is this great illusionary land? Was it real or just a dream? If it was real, if all these were Mayan's memories, then what did he do to Mayan, to Xiaobao? In the 7 years that he didn't know, in the 7 years that he forgot everything, in the 7 years that he was the emperor of the polar domain. The woman that he loved the most, his only child, what did she experience? Chapter 3991. In the land of the cursed god, Mu Yan's intrusion saved his life. In his delirium, he forced Yan to bear his child at such a young age. That child had a celestial spiritual body, which made all the evil people in the world greedy. Thus Mu Yan's nightmare began. And he, Di Mingju, is the main culprit behind all of this. Gugu? Little Ing Hua lets out a low cry, nudging Di Mingju with his little head, his big eyes filled with worry. Dad, what's wrong with you? Is it very painful? Huang Huang will blow it for you, okay? Daddy, don't cry. Mommy and big brother will be sad if you cry. Di Mingju can't bear it any longer. He covers his face with both hands, tears pouring down like a broken dam. Yan, how can I redeem my sins? What can I do to make up for all the hurt you've suffered all these years? Yan, how can I say I'm sorry again and, I love you? GGG? The little chick is anxiously circling around the Di Mingju. Why does Daddy keep crying? Are you really sad? However, he thought that only Huang Huang and his brother would cry. It turns out that Daddy can also cry shamefully. As the little chick is at its wit's end, it sees Di Mingju slowly getting up. GGG. Daddy, are you done crying? Are we going out? Sleeping isn't fun. Let's go out and find Mom and brother, okay? Di Mingju grabs it in his hand and presses his palm on its forehead. A pale blue light shrouds the top of the little chick's head. Huang Huang, thank you. Thank you for showing me all this. Thank you for letting me know just how much I owe Mu Yan and Xiaobao. It's so much that I might not be able to repay it all in my lifetime. The man's hoarse voice was accompanied by a cool and refreshing aura that enveloped his body, causing Huang Huang to close its eyes comfortably. The entire chicken felt drowsy. However, little chick still felt that something was wrong. It shook its little head, trying desperately to wake up. However, the power was too gentle and comfortable. The little chick couldn't resist it anymore and fell asleep. Then its figure began to slowly fade and dissipate into the air. In the great illusionary land, one could not use divine power, spiritual power, or immortal power. Di Mingju is also unable to condense a solid body, unable to have any effect on everything around it. Just like what had happened in the previous cycle. Even if they were driven mad by hatred and pain, they could only watch from the sidelines, unable to interfere. But this time, Di Mingju slowly walks over to the girl tied to the crude wooden bed. He reached out and held her in his arms. Divine power surged and the fragile hemp rope broke. He easily picked up the girl. A look of panic appeared on the girl's face. Who are you? What do you want to do? The panicked voices stopped abruptly. Di Mingju tightly presses that thin and cold body into his arms, hoarsely saying, Yan, don't be afraid, I'll take you home. The girl in his arms opened her mouth. Who are you? I don't know you. She wants to struggle, but Di Mingju hugs her tightly, so tightly that he practically kneads her into his own flesh and blood. He didn't say anything. He just repeated over and over, Yan, don't be afraid. I'll take you home. His hoarse voice echoed in the girl's ears. A faint blue ball of light like a star bursts out from Di Mingju's body, drilling into the girl's body. You. The girl's eyes widen in shock, seemingly wanting to say something. Chapter 3992. But very quickly, everything in front of her starts to spin. That's the Big Dipper changing, the sea turning into mulberry fields. The appearance of the thin and weak girl with a big belly gradually begins to change. Her sallow skin became sparkling and translucent. Her timid and flustered eyes were now overflowing with radiance and color. The dry and messy long hair turns into fine black hair, flowing in the air. Her pupils were originally unfocused, pitch black without a bit of light. Now they gradually reflect the man's shadow. Di Mingju. She calls out her lover's name in a low, hoarse voice. The man opposite her smiles gently at her. That smile is indescribably gentle and penetrating, with an indescribable lingering affection. His slender hand lifts up, gently caressing her face. He says, Yan, don't be afraid, I'll take you home. In that instant, Mu Yan's heart is unreasonably soft and unreasonably sweet. She wants to say that she has never been afraid. Not because she doesn't fear death, but because she has always believed that Di Mingju will not abandon her. So even if she faces a venerable immortal like Lu Xingyuan, she still believes that she still has a way out. That's because she made a promise to this man to stay by his side for a lifetime. This promise hasn't been fulfilled yet, how could she be willing to die? Mu Yan's mouth hooks up into a shallow smile, softly saying, "All right, I'm not afraid." Her voice hasn't fallen when her complexion suddenly changes. Di Mingju. She suddenly reaches out and grabs the man's arm, her divine sense probing his body. She's scared witless. "Di Mingju, what did you do? Why is your soul broken like this?" Before she can finish speaking, she's already tightly embraced by the man. "Yan Yan, let me hold you a little longer." As the two embrace, more blue starlight flows from Di Mingju into Mu Yan's body. Mu Yan's pupils suddenly contract. "You're using your soul to mend my soul? Di Mingju, are you crazy? With my spirit I'll ferry your soul. With my spirit I'll nourish your vitality. With my life I'll exchange your life." Mu Yan only feels a loud bang in her head, and in a split second she almost loses all her senses. When she came back to her senses, she hurriedly struggled with all her might, wanting to break free from his embrace, but she was held tighter and tighter. The man hugged her as if he was hugging the most important treasure. He was afraid that if he let go he would lose it. "Yan Yan, how can I leave you behind? How could I have abandoned you back then?" Hot tears fell on her neck, so hot that even her heart trembled. Mu Yan stares blankly, only feeling that even her own soul is aching. She opened her mouth to say something. His slender hands covered her eyes, and a cold blue light shrouded her. Her consciousness gradually became hazy. Vaguely she felt the man's cold lips on her own. "Yan Yan, you must live well. I love you till death do me part, Di Mingju." "What do you want to do?" Mu Yan desperately wants to open her eyes and question the man. However, the cold and gentle blue light completely enveloped her soul, slowly stealing away her consciousness. At the same time, countless blue starlight surged into her soul form. Bit by bit, it mends her broken soul. Mu Yan can feel that her 3 souls and 7 spirits, which were originally riddled with holes, are starting to solidify. She once again sensed the existence of her body, sensed the space of the Tianmo Qin, and the corpses of her fellow apprentices in the book tower. Chapter 3993. She was healing. She finally had a slim chance of survival. He was able to use the nirvana of stars to revive his fellow disciples. But the price of this slim chance of survival is Di Mingju's life. How can she trade Di Mingju's life for her own? If she could open her eyes at this moment and see that stupid man, she would definitely give him a tight slap. "Di Mingju, how could you think that without you Jun Mayan could still live alone in this world? Why do you think that living a life worse than death is better than dying? Di Mingju, do you still remember that we said that we would stay together for a long time, that we would look at the scenery of the 4 seasons together? Do you still remember that you promised to give me and Xiaobao a happy home? If you die, how will the family be called home? How can we be happy?" She would not allow it. Absolutely not. No one can take away her husband, her Di Mingju. Not even the heavenly Tao or fate. She was a Shin musician. She was a Shin musician who could defy the heavens and change fate, who could bring the dead back to life, who could snatch a life from the hands of the king of hell, and who could struggle against the heavens for survival. Boom. The lone island crumbled and the sea surged, sweeping up huge waves that reached the sky. The impassioned sound of the zither was accompanied by specks of blue light, diffusing between heaven and earth. A silver moon. A blazing sun. They rose into the sky one after the other. 9 stars slowly revolved around them, shining brilliantly. They dyed the sky as well as illuminating the entire mountain and river. Southeast of the floating island. With Xiaoyao City as the center, Han Yi and the other 3 are looking for news of Di Mingju over and over again. However, the result was disappointing. Not to mention Di Mingju and Jun Mayan, they can't even find traces of the other 6 people of the Xiaoyao school. Even the people of Liberty City only knew that the 7 carefree sons had gone to train themselves, but they did not know their exact whereabouts. Originally, Wei Mian had a communication talisman to contact Mu Yan and Luo Yu. But when he burned the communication talisman, there was no response from the other side. Wei Mian's heart is also burning with impatience. He sends out 100,000 Xiaoyao army members to help Han Yi and the others search. However, several days and nights passed. The entire floating island was almost turned upside down, but nothing was found. Ending the communication with Star Wolf, Han Yi wants to release his divine sense. However, he only felt that his sea of consciousness was dry and painful. His face paled a little. A porcelain bottle was passed to him from the side, and Ing Mei's slightly hoarse voice came into his ears. Drink some jasper dew to regulate your breathing. She originally wanted to say that if he overdrew his divine sense like this, his sea of consciousness might be damaged. But when he felt a burning pain in his dantian, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Han Yi takes the porcelain bottle and drinks the jasper dew inside in one gulp. When he handed the bottle back, his fingers trembled and the porcelain bottle fell to the ground. Han Yi promptly crouches down to pick it up, but the bottle rolls several meters away. He wanted to use his celestial power to grab the bottle back, but he found that his hands were shaking very badly. Once the immortal power was activated, the fragile porcelain bottle suddenly shattered. Han Yi suddenly punches the ground, the rims of his eyes reddening. Little shadow, nothing will happen to Jun Shang and Miss June, right? Ing Mei slowly squatted down and held his head in her arms. Her voice was unprecedentedly gentle. It'll be fine. It'll definitely be fine. Han Yi firmly nods. Jun Shang was the only immortal emperor after the end of the ancient war. Miss June is the successor of the Shin musicians. Their fate is so special and rich. How could... Chapter 3994. The last death word, he can't say it no matter what. Ing Mei's heart surges with endless sorrow. She wants to say some comforting words but she can't say them. That's because her fear and uneasiness at the moment is no less than Han Ye's. Her calmness is nothing more than a forced calmness. And this is the moment when the vision of heaven and earth happens. The two of them stand up abruptly, their eyes unblinkingly looking at the blazing sun and silver moon rising in the sky. The originally dim and obscure eyes are lit up little by the dazzling brilliance. The glorious sun swallows the sky, 9 stars connect to the moon. It's Jun Shang and Miss June, they're not dead. Ing Mei, they're not dead. That energy fluctuation is coming from the north, let's go find them. Han Yi is about to rush out as he speaks, but Ing Mei grabs his collar and pulls him back. At the same time, Ing Mei has already thrown out a flying boat, taking Han Yi and jumping on it. When the two of them are standing still, she takes out another bottle of jasper dew and drinks it. She sits down cross-legged, looking at Han Yi with disdain. Your knowledge sea is exhausted, your immortal power is dried up. What can you do by rushing to Jun Shang's side? Drag Jun Shang down? Han Yi comes back to his senses. He chuckles and promptly sits down cross-legged as well, beginning to adjust his breathing and absorb the immortal power in the jasper dew. The floating island, the shore of the Bohai Sea. 2 streaks of light come speeding from the east and west, eventually landing on the beach. Star Wolf, Ing Mei and Han Yi arrive almost at the same time. And defeating armies is even faster than them. Star Wolf cuts a sorry figure as he falls down from the flying sword, his complexion deathly pale, his appearance weathered by the vicissitudes of life. He doesn't even have time to steady himself before rushing over to ask defeating armies, "Where's Jun Shang?" Defeating armies slowly shakes his head, his expression grave. The energy fluctuation stopped after I arrived here. At this time, the rising sun and the silver moon have long disappeared without a trace. I didn't find Jun Shang and I didn't see Miss June. How could this be? Star Wolf angrily says, that's the glorious sun swallows the sky, it must be Miss June and Jun Shang. Defeating armies takes a deep breath and says, I know 9 stars connect to the moon, glorious sun swallows the sky, it must be Miss June and Jun Shang. I arrived here a few hours ago and checked the surroundings including the deep sea. There are indeed no signs of living people. The expressions of the Star Wolf trio changed drastically, their minds on the verge of collapsing. However, defeating armies continued, but there's something very strange. I sensed energy fluctuations from the opening of a spatial barrier passage nearby. And not just 1 or 2 but a total of 8? What does this mean? Han Ye's eyes brighten. You're saying that Jun Shang and Miss June passed through the space barrier and left the floating island? But why are there 8 energy fluctuations? 8 energy fluctuations represented 8 different spatial barriers, 8 different entrances and exits. What was going on? Is Jun Shang safe or not? While the 4 of them were bewildered, the jade slip on defeating armies' waist lit up. Soon, Elder Chang's excited voice came from inside. Jun Shang has returned. He's in the numinous sky hall right now. The 4 of you return quickly. In just half an hour, the beach on the shore of the Bohai Sea was restored to its calm state. Only the layers of waves curled up from time to time, rolling and crashing onto the shore. The rhythmic sound of the waves appears peaceful and serene. It's as if the previous bloody battle, the previous hatred, the previous love, hate, anger and foolishness, all of it didn't happen. In the distant horizon, there seems to be the low cries of beasts and the melodious sounds of a zither, lingering and reverberating. That's a long farewell. That's a moving parting. That's the departure of a new road. Chapter 3995. At the southeast border of the Xiaoxian continent. Blood stained the originally verdant and green fields. Creepy roars could be heard from time to time. In the cracks of the rocks in the distance, dozens of figures were shivering, their eyes full of fear. However, just when they were in despair, a golden light fell from the sky, covering the dark land. Unique Sanskrit gathered into a complicated flower table, crisscrossing in the void. With a loud bang, the Sanskrit exploded, and the golden light turned into a cold sword energy, instantly cutting the whole field. The horrible roars and shrill screams stopped abruptly. Seeing this scene, the people in the cracks of the rocks all widened their eyes, revealing ecstatic expressions. That's the Buddha's light of purification. We're saved, ha ha. Some people cried, some people laughed. As the golden light turned into sword energy, it killed all the monsters. The golden Buddha's light swept across the field like a gentle breeze, purifying the whole land. In just a moment, the place that was like a bloody hell was restored to green and full of vitality. When the golden light dissipated, a figure in a golden red kasaya appeared. The people hiding in the cracks of the rocks hurriedly rushed out. Master, fortunately you're here. Thank you for saving our lives, Master. When the people who rushed to the front saw his face clearly, their footsteps stopped, and their excited voices also gradually stopped. It was really the Master in front of them. He was a monk, but he was too young. Moreover, he had delicate features, red lips, and white teeth. When he saw so many people rushing over, he even took a step back shyly. No matter how one looked at him, he did not look like an enlightened monk. Instead, he looked like a handsome young man who came from a noble family and was ignorant of worldly affairs. The people looked at each other, wondering if they had seen wrongly. But there were no other monks around. After calming himself down, an old man walked out of the group and bowed deeply to the little monk. We are the clansmen of the Si-Ching tribe. Today we accidentally encountered the corpse puppet when we went out. Thanks to Master's help, we survived. May I ask the origin of Master's Buddha name? If there is a chance in the future, the Si-Ching tribe will do our best to repay you. Back then, when the heavens collapsed, the sky pillars collapsed, and the nightmare ghosts wreaked havoc. Countless humans and spirit beasts on the ground were bitten by the poltergeist ghosts. They were poisoned by the poltergeist ghosts and there was no time to treat them. In the end, these beasts didn't die, but they turned into monsters similar to the poltergeist. This was a corpse puppet. They were not as strong as the poltergeist ghosts, and their intelligence was even lower than the weakest poltergeist ghosts. Their numbers were countless times that of the poltergeists. Moreover, these corpse puppets had some of the same characteristics as ghouls. Undying and indestructible, his entire body filled with poison. Unless a special method or divine power was used to incinerate it completely. Otherwise, even if it was blown to smithereens, it would regenerate after a period of time. If there weren't many corpse puppets, ordinary immortals would be able to deal with them easily. However, once the corpse puppets formed a group, they would become an incomparably terrifying existence. You've just gotten rid of more than half of the corpse puppets, and the corpse puppets that were killed before will resurrect. Life and death, endless and unending. It was like a nightmare and there was no end to them. The people of the Si-Ching tribe were unlucky enough to encounter a large group of corpse puppets on this plane. More than half of the original group of more than 100 people were devoured by the corpse puppets. These dead people became the source of power for the corpse puppets. This also caused the number of corpse puppets to increase rapidly. Chapter 3996. In the end, they could only hide in the crevices of the rocks and guard the entrance with all their might to prolong their existence. But their immortal power would be exhausted and their spirits would collapse. At that time, they would have no choice but to become the food of the corpse puppet. Just when the people of the Si-Ching tribe were about to despair, the golden Buddhist light shrouded them and brought them a chance of survival. This made them feel infinitely grateful to the person in front of them, and they wished they could marry him to repay his kindness. The little monk put his palms together and was about to say, Amitabha. Suddenly, he thought of something and swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. He said in a low voice, "It's nothing. Don't worry about it." The little monk thought with a slightly red face. He planned to confess to his master that his sin in the mortal world had not been severed and he wanted to return to secular life. Then he shouldn't use the name of Defying Temple anymore. And he shouldn't call himself a little monk anymore. He wanted to slowly get used to being an ordinary man again. The people of the Siqing tribe didn't dare to ask any more questions since they couldn't find out the little monk's origin. They just said their gratitude over and over again. A few young and pretty girls in the crowd looked at the little monk's handsome face, their faces filled with bashfulness. The little monk listened to their words of gratitude with a smile. Then he said in a warm voice, "If you really want to thank me, I want to ask you about the whereabouts of a person." He took out a picture scroll and slowly unfolded it. "This person is my second senior brother. I have been looking for him all these years. May I ask if you have seen him? Even if it's just some information about him, I will be very grateful if you can tell me." The people of the Siqing tribe stared at the lifelike picture scroll for a long time. Then they shook their heads one by one. Although he was already mentally prepared, the little monk still couldn't help but feel disappointed. Previously, he had sensed the fluctuation of the divine power of his second senior brother from a very far place. So he excitedly rushed to the southeast area to look for him. However, during this period of time he had asked almost everyone in this area, but no one could give him any clues about his second senior brother. The little monk was about to put away the picture scroll. But he heard a little girl frowning and whispering, "This person seems a little familiar. I seem to have seen him somewhere." "Really?" The little monk's eyes lit up. The little girl said hesitantly, "I'm not sure if what I saw was the person in the painting, because the man had long hair and was dressed as a Taoist. Because of the existence of Defying Temple, Buddhism flourished while Taoism declined. Usually, once one joined Buddhism, it was impossible for them to switch to Taoism. Therefore, although the little girl found him familiar at first glance, she hesitated and did not say it out loud. Hearing this, Jing Yuan was stunned, but he still said excitedly, "It's all right. It doesn't matter even if I'm mistaken. When and where did you meet this person?" The little girl seemed to be recalling something, and a pained expression appeared on her face. "That was many years ago. My father was seriously injured and was about to die. I heard that there was an omnipotent immortal on Mo Mountain. I wanted to ask the immortal to save my father, so I kept climbing up." The little girl's cultivation level was very low. She was only at the 5th or 6th level of the hollow immortal stage. The Ink Mountain, in the netherworld, towered into the clouds and was covered with air barriers all year round, making it impossible to fly on a sword. It was obviously very painful and difficult for the little girl to climb up. "I don't know how long I've been climbing. My hands and feet hurt so much that I couldn't hold on any longer and fell down." Chapter 3997. "I thought I was going to die, but someone grabbed my collar and put me on a big rock." The little girl shows a grateful expression. "At that time, I was so tired and sleepy that I couldn't open my eyes. I only vaguely saw a man who was 100 times more beautiful than the immortal in the painting walking to my side. I guessed that it must be an immortal, so I desperately resisted my sleepiness, crying and begging him to save my father. That man put a porcelain bottle next to me. Before I lost consciousness, I saw another man fall next to the immortal." The little girl points to the man in the painting. "It's this man." Jing Yuan promptly asks, "What did they say?" The little girl tries hard to remember. "He said to elder brother immortal, everything in the world has its own path of life and death. You can't save all living things in the world by only helping one person. Sometimes doing evil isn't really evil but to achieve great benevolence and virtue. Do you understand?" Then elder brother immortal called that man master, and then I completely fell asleep. When I woke up, if I hadn't been holding the medicine in my hand, I would have thought that I was dreaming. Jing Yuan is startled. "Master? Second brother actually has a disciple?" His heart is burning and he's extremely excited. Although the little girl said that she wasn't sure if the person she saw was second brother. But this is the closest he's ever gotten to news about second brother. "Miss, could I trouble you to go with me to Mount Mo?" The chief of the Siqing tribe says without hesitation. "Of course, the great master is our savior. It's only a matter of leading the way. Wu Meng, you should go with the great master." The little girl called Wu Meng promptly nods, a bit of shyness in the corners of her eyes. Jing Yuan is about to speak, when a golden light suddenly flashes at his fingertips. Eldest brother's cold voice directly penetrates into the sea of knowledge. Jing Yuan, return quickly. Second brother has passed away. Jing Yuan's eyes widen. He only feels as if there's a loud explosion in his brain, almost shattering all of his consciousness. Polar domain. Han Yi and Ying Mei hurriedly enter the hall. They run into Xing Lang and Elder Chang. Both sides speak almost at the same time. Has Jun Shang woken up? Have you found Miss Jun's whereabouts? As their voices fall, they see the disappointment in each other's eyes. Several days had passed. Ever since that day when the 9 stars and the moon suddenly appeared on the floating island and the glorious sun swallowed the sky, Di Mingju suddenly came out from the Qingkuan mirror, but Mu Yin had completely disappeared without a trace. Even though Di Mingju has returned to High Sky Hall, he's completely unconscious. The strange thing was that the heavy injuries on his body and his crumbling godhead were somehow healed. In fact, his cultivation was even showing signs of rising. But he just couldn't wake up. Even Han Chujio couldn't find out the reason. Elder Chang let out a long sigh and forced a smile. At least the Lord has returned safely. We can also be sure that Miss June is still alive. Han Yi also follows along with the relaxed atmosphere, since we already know that those 8 space barrier passages all lead to the Xiuxian continent. That means that Miss June and the other 6 unfettered suns are on the Xiuxian continent. As long as we are here, what do we need to worry about? With the strength of our polar domain, even turning the entire Xiuxian continent upside down wouldn't be a problem. Are you afraid that you won't be able to find Miss June? Chapter 3998. Due to unknown reasons, Sogu is suddenly unable to find this site today. Elder Chang said with a frown, I don't know why, but the number of corpse puppets that had been almost completely wiped out within the polar domain has suddenly increased. It's fine for those at the mysterious immortal realm and above, but once those hollow immortals and golden immortals encounter groups of corpse puppets, it'll simply be a calamity. Now that His Majesty is unconscious and Miss June is missing, the Imperial Guards and you can't easily mobilize them. We can only watch helplessly as the corpse puppets wreak havoc and kill innocent people. Star Wolf gnashed his teeth and said, If Lord is awake, what do mere corpse puppets count as? Lord only needs to wave his sleeves and he can turn them into ashes. These words were not wrong at all. Ordinary immortals would have to use special methods and expend a great deal of effort to deal with these corpse hag. For an immortal emperor like Di Mingju, he only needs to casually use a ball of divine fire to completely burn him down, and there's no possibility of resurrection. Ying Mei said coldly, if Miss June was here, she would definitely be able to wake Jun Shang up. But now Di Mingju is in a long slumber. Jun Mayan's whereabouts are unknown. Everyone let out a long sigh. At this moment, a figure slowly walked in from outside the house. Seeing who it is, Han Yi, Ying Mei and Xing Lang all frown. Only Elder Chang welcomed him with his usual smile. Commander Tong, why have you come? Commander Tong's face darkened as he asked, What about Jun Shang? Are you still unwilling to see me today? Elder Chang smiled and said, Zhang Ling must be joking. You are Jun Shang's wet nurse and have raised him up. Why would Jun Shang refuse to see you? It's just that Jun Shang is currently in closed-door cultivation, so it's naturally inconvenient for him to meet people. Commander Tong furrowed his brows. Ruler would always pass down orders before he went into seclusion. But now, the great battle with the Nether Realm and the demon race ended without a conclusion, and then Ruler disappeared for more than half a month. When he finally returned, he went into seclusion for no apparent reason. This is simply not in line with Jun Shang's character. Elder Chang, tell me honestly, did something happen to Jun Shang? Elder Chang's expression was the same as usual. With a puzzled expression he said, Commander must be joking. How could I not know that something has happened to the Lord? His Lordship has only taken a good pill and had a breakthrough in his cultivation. That's why he went into seclusion. Isn't it normal that he didn't have time to issue the decree? Tong Zhongling's gaze swept across everyone present coldly, and he snorted coldly, I'm Jun Shang's wet nurse and you all actually suspect me? None of them answered. Elder Chang smiled like a Maitreya Buddha. As for the other 3, they were completely unmoved by his words. Commander Tong was exasperated, his eyes blazing with fury. She suppressed her anger and sneered, Since you don't trust me, then you won't trust the person I brought back. Since that's the case, I'll order people to directly throw that woman out of the polar domain. Elder Chang was stunned. What woman? Commander Tong's expression was indifferent as he said, I returned from the northern borders and saw a heavily injured woman near the imperial city's barrier. I didn't have any interest in caring about her, but who knew that I would feel the fluctuations of Jun Shang's divine power from her body. I suspected that she might be a spy, so I went over to investigate. That woman's appearance was extremely outstanding, not the slightest bit inferior to Yu Yanran, one of the 4 unrivaled beauties of the past. It's just that the injuries on her body were extremely serious. When I helped her up, she was already on the verge of death. In the end, she only had time to say one sentence to me: "Tell Di Mingju that Mayan has come to find him," and then she fainted. Chapter 3999. Elder Chang and the others simultaneously suck in a mouthful of cold air. Mei even forgets herself and grabs her sleeve. Is that true? Where is Miss June now? Commander Tong shakes off her hand, sneering. So that woman is the only one worthy of Jun Shang in your words, Jun Mayan? I think she's just SOSO. I don't know how she managed to injure herself so badly that she couldn't even break a mere Imperial City's outer boundary. Breaking the Imperial City's outer boundary will alert the Polar Domain's Imperial Guards. Thus, even without Commander Tong's help, the news will still spread. Less nonsense. Mei angrily says, "Quickly tell me where Miss June is." If Miss June's treatment is delayed, believe it or not, the first thing Jun Shang will do when he wakes up will be to dismember your body into 10,000 pieces. Commander Tong's complexion turns green and white. Ever since she expressed her dissatisfaction with Jun Mayan's mortal identity, and vainly tried to make another woman the mistress of the Polar Domain, Han Yi and the others' attitude towards her became worse and worse. As Di Mingju's wet nurse, her status in the Polar Domain should be aloof and respected. But now, just a few insignificant juniors dare to yell at her, scowling and glaring at her. Commander Tong takes a deep breath. At this very moment, she increasingly feels that her decision back then was correct. She says with a cold face, "You guys come with me." Elder Chang and the others quickly follow, unable to hide the worry and happiness on their faces. Happy that they've finally found Miss June, worried that Miss June's injuries are so serious that they have to let the King of Medicine quickly come and treat her. After half an hour, a scowling Han Chujio is summoned from the Medicine King Hall. Seeing the several people who are anxiously waiting for him, Han Chujio grits her teeth and says, "What do you think Laozi is? An ordinary doctor? You want me to save a random Tom, Dick, and Harry? Do Laozi owe you guys?" Elder Chang coughs lightly. "Xiao Jiao, if it weren't for the utmost urgency, I wouldn't have asked you to save her. Can you go and see the person first?" Han Chujio walks to the bed with a cold face. Seeing the woman lying on the bed, she raises her eyebrows. This woman's appearance is really outstanding. But she doesn't know if it's because she's asleep, but she always gives people a sense of unreality. "Who is this?" Elder Chang asked. "This is Miss June?" "Miss June? Which Miss June?" Han Chujio froze for a moment, then she thought of something. Her face became extremely ugly. "This is Di Mingju's little lover outside? Damn it, I will poison her to death right now. How dare you snatch my precious disciple's man?" As he spoke, a ball of flame had already condensed in his palm, and he was about to smash it towards the person on the bed. Wait. Absolutely not. Chang Lao was almost scared out of his wits. He rushed over and held Han Chujio's hand, then said, "Little Jiao, don't mess around. Miss June is the future mistress of the Polar Domain, no one can neglect her. If you hurt her, Jun Shang will never let you off when he wakes up." Han Chujio's face turned red in anger. "You said she is the future mistress of the Polar Domain? Then what about my disciple? At that time, Di Mingju personally said that he would marry my disciple. Although he doesn't want his precious disciple to be driven away by Di Mingju, that philandering big peacock. But his unwillingness and Di Mingju deceiving his disciple, is this the same thing?" Elder Chang's face shows a helpless expression. "Xiao Jiao, don't you think Miss June looks familiar?" Chapter 4000. Han Chujio looked at the woman on the bed. The disgust in his eyes were overflowing. "I don't think so." Elder Chang was taken aback. This shouldn't be. Even though Jun Shang didn't say it clearly, but the fact that Miss June is little Jiao's disciple is already set in stone. Only little Nine was kept in the dark. But how come little Nine doesn't seem to recognize Miss June? Han Yi suddenly thinks of something. In Qingguang ruins, Miss June used Yi Liang Chen's identity and appearance. Because the Heavenly Light ruins was under the jurisdiction of the Nether Realm. Therefore Han Yi and the others rarely enter the Qingguang ruins. But Star Wolf still followed little Mo Ju in. Han Yi and the others also know that Mayan had altered her appearance in Qingguang ruins, so Yi Liangchen's appearance is different from Mayan's. Chang Lao was worried about Mu Yan's injury, so he quickly pulled Han Chujio and explained that Mu Yan is his precious disciple. I thought he would be ecstatic. Who knows, after Han Chujio looked at the woman on the bed for a long time, she frowned her eyebrows and said, "Brother, don't lie to me. How can I not recognize my baby disciple?" He sneered, "I know you were afraid that I wouldn't be willing to save this vixen who seduced Di Mingju, so you ganged up to deceive me, saying that she's my precious disciple. Bah! Your father won't fall for it. That son of a bitch Di Mingju has a foot on two boats, Lousy still hasn't settled it with him? You want me to save his little lover? Not a chance." After saying that, his figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. "Hey little nine, wait." Elder Chang stretched out his hand to grab at thin air and tugged at his hair in frustration. Little Nine refused to believe their words and refused to save anyone. What should they do now? Commander Tong snickered by the side and said, "The Polar Domain's most precious medicinal pill has already been fed to her. What else can she do? Let's see if she can pull through. If she can't make it, then that's her fate." You. Star Wolf was so angry that he wanted to beat someone up. But at this moment, the woman on the bed suddenly let out a painful moan. Miss June. Miss June, what do you think?" Elder Chang and the rest no longer cared about Commander Tong and hurriedly pounced over to check on the woman's condition. The person on the bed seemed to be dreaming of something terrible. His eyebrows were tightly knitted, and beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. Her face alternated between pale and red. It was obvious that he was in extreme pain. Just as Chang Lao was about to rush over to Han Chujio, the woman on the bed suddenly jumped up and shouted, Di Mingju, don't leave me." "Miss June, you're awake? How do you feel? Do you need to take another pill?" The woman held her head with one hand and revealed a pained expression. A pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes slowly swept across Elder Chang and the rest. A perplexed look appeared on his face. "Who are you guys?" Elder Chang was shocked. "Miss June, what are you talking about? Don't you remember us?" The woman's expression became more and more confused. She seemed to be trying very hard to remember. Suddenly he hugged his head. My head hurts? Who am I? Where am I? And who are you?" "Di Mingju, that's right, Di Mingju? I'm looking for Di Mingju? What the hell is going on? How come Miss June doesn't even recognize us? She doesn't seem to remember who she is. Could it be that the injury was too heavy and she lost her memory?" Chapter 4001. Outside the room, Elder Chang and the others are discussing worriedly. "What should we do now? Why don't I ask Xiao Jiu to come and treat her? I think that now that Miss June has lost her memory, the two sides can't verify it. I'm afraid that the King of Medicine will not treat Miss June." Everyone looks at each other and they can't help but sigh. Miss June, who they thought had disappeared for a long time, was finally found. With her medical skills, she might be able to save June Shang. But who knows, when it rains it pours. Miss June unexpectedly lost her memory. Han Chujio is also angry and refuses to treat her. Elder Chang massages his temples with a headache. Send someone to invite Dr. Lu over. Dr. Lu's original name is Lu Ren, a high-ranking doctor supported by the Imperial Court of Jiyu. Han Chujio is also skilled in medicine. But he's better at refining medicine. So in terms of medical skills, Lu Ren is not worse than Han Chujio. It's just that Mayan's identity is special. Elder Chang doesn't want other people to see Mayan before Di Mingju wakes up. But he can't care about it now. Han Yi hesitates. Miss June doesn't remember who she is, but she always calls June Shang's name as if she remembers June Shang. If we take her to see June Shang, maybe she can remember something. Elder Chang's eyes brighten. That's a good idea. With Miss June by his side, June Shang may wake up. I'll take Miss June. Wait a minute. The speaker is Ying Mei. She frowns slightly, seemingly thinking about something. Han Yi asks with concern, "Little Shadow, what's wrong? Are you worried about Miss June?" Ying Mei reins back her thoughts and lightly says, "Nothing. It's just that Miss June is seriously injured and has lost her memory. Rashly taking her to see June Shang may worsen her condition. I think it's better to wait for Dr. Lu to come and see her first." In the end, Elder Chang listens to Ying Mei's opinion and doesn't take anyone to see Di Mingju. After seeing the patient, Dr. Lu determined that her soul is damaged and she has experienced a major shock, so her memory is in chaos. She only remembers Di Mingju, but she doesn't remember Elder Chang and her own identity. This is a sign of memory disorder. This kind of situation might not recover for 30 to 50 years, but it might also be remembered after a few months. The woman lying on the bed was pale and her eyes were dim. She looked at them with guilt and unease. "I'm sorry, did I cause you trouble? But I really can't remember anything." Old Man Chang quickly said, "Miss June, you mustn't say that. You are Jun Shang's fiancée, my polar domain's future mistress. It is our duty to serve you." "Jun Shang, is it Di Mingju?" The woman slightly frowns, revealing a pained and perplexed expression. "I can't remember anything. But this name kept appearing in his mind. I know he must be a very important person to me." Di Mingju is Jun Shang's taboo name. In a flash, a brilliant smile blooms on the woman's face, making her originally beautiful facial features become as bright and beautiful as 100 flowers in spring. "So, I'm Di Mingju's fiancé? Can I see him?" A look of hesitation appeared on Elder Chang's face. "Can't I?" The smile on the woman's face dimmed. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have made such an excessive request." "No, how could that be?" Elder Chang promptly said, "You are Jun Shang's fiancé, it's natural for you to want to see Jun Shang. How could it be excessive?" "It's just that Jun Shang is in seclusion." Ing Mei interrupted Elder Chang's words, saying in a calm tone, "Miss Jun, you should wait for Jun Shang to come out of seclusion before you see him." Han Yi also smiled. "That's right, Miss Jun. You should recuperate first, otherwise Jun Shang would be sad to see you like this." Chapter 4002. "No, how could that be?" Elder Chang quickly says, "You are Jun Shang's fiancé, it's natural for you to want to see Jun Shang. How could it be too much?" "It's just that Jun Shang is in seclusion." Ing Mei interrupts Elder Chang and says in a calm tone, "Miss Jun, you should wait for Jun Shang to come out before you see him." Han Yi also smiles. "Yes, Miss Jun, you should recuperate first, otherwise Jun Shang will be sad to see you like this." The woman on the bed shows a bashful smile, then as if the medicine has taken effect, she falls into a deep sleep. They go out the door. Han Yi says doubtfully, "Little Shadow, you're a bit strange today." "Strange about what?" "You didn't treat Miss June like this before." Ing Mei's intimacy towards Mu Yen can be seen by anyone with eyes. It's even more intimate than Di Mingju, making Han Yi unable to help but feel jealous. But today Han Yi feels that Ing Mei's attitude towards Miss June is a bit cold. Ing Mei opens her mouth wanting to say something, but in the end she only says faintly, "I treat Miss June better, you're jealous? Now that I treat her coldly you say I'm strange. Han Yi, I think you're itching for a beating?" Han Yi sees Ing Mei slowly clenching her fists, shivers and turns to run. Everyone can't help but laugh out loud. So no one sees Ing Mei's slightly drooping eyes. She doesn't know why, but she can't get close to this Miss June in front of her. It's obviously the same face, but she feels that something's wrong. Xiaoshen continent, under the hidden abyss. Damn, it seems that today's fruitless again. Night Spirit smashes the Chengkuan bag in her hand on a rock, and raises her hand to wipe the bloodstains on her face. She's really unlucky. With great difficulty the barrier loosens and she can come to the Demon Cloud Ridge to look for food. Who knew that she would run into a group of corpse puppets? The people of the demon race, even the lowest level demon soldier. They don't fear corpse puppets. Because compared to ghosts the toxicity of corpse puppets is too weak. It simply can't penetrate the thick and filthy skin of the demon race. But that's when there are only 3 or 5 corpse puppets. Once the number of corpse puppets increases, the low-level demon soldiers and demon guards will be infected with more and more corpse poison. The infection of pie poison was extremely strong. When the poison seeped into their skin and contaminated their monster cores, they would die without a complete corpse. Night Spirit was only a rank 5 demon weapon. She was lucky to be able to kill those 10 corpse puppets without being infected by the venom. However, the devil chi in her body had been completely depleted. Not to mention going to the Demon Cloud Ridge to look for food, he didn't even dare to go back. Any magical beast in this mountain range could kill her with a single slap. Night Spirit rummaged through the cosmic bag and ultimately only found a piece of rotten and smelly magical beast meat. If she ate this kind of trash, her magic core would be contaminated with even more impurities, making it harder for her to cultivate in the future. The most important thing was that the smelly magical beast meat was really unpalatable. Frowning, Night Spirit forced himself to pinch his nose and take a bite. Ugh! A disgusting sour smell, accompanied by the pungent smell of blood, filled all of her senses. Wait a minute. Night Spirit suddenly realized that something was amiss. Corpse puppets were lifeless walking corpses. Every inch of skin and every piece of flesh on their bodies was rotten and smelly. She hadn't even killed a single magical beast yet, so why would she smell blood? Chapter 4003. She hadn't even killed a single demonic beast yet, so why would she smell blood? The key was that the smell of blood was way too fresh and sweet. It stimulated the demon core in her body to spin rapidly, and a strong desire to eat surged in her heart. Night Spirit quickly kept the smelly meat and followed the smell of blood. Before long she saw a person covered in blood in a crack in the rocks. Was this a human or a corpse? Night Spirit fell into deep thought as she looked at the woman whose chest was flat and her clothes were completely soaked in blood. She was said to be alive, but there was no fiendish chi at all. Even though she was dead, that beautiful face of hers was still rosy and fair. She was so beautiful that even a demoness like Night Spirit could not help but want to swallow her saliva. The aesthetics of demons were usually different from spirit cultivators. They revered strength and strength more, while women preferred the enchanting and charming snow girl, a stunner with all kinds of amorous feelings. The so-called peerless beauties that spirit cultivators talked about. To demons they were all boring and pretentious little cabbages that were fake and pure. It was disgusting to look at them. They were not as interesting as demons who respected their own desires. But even so, Night Spirit could not help but admit that the woman before her was very beautiful. Be it the aesthetics of humans or demons, she was so beautiful that she forgot to breathe for a moment. However, the shock only lasted for a moment as Night Spirit snapped back to her senses. What was the use of being pretty? Could being pretty be used as food? Soft skin and tender flesh could be used as food? Night Spirit's eyes shone with greed and desire as she stuck out her tongue and licked her lips. She had been hungry for a long time. She did not know how this human girl fell into the abyss. However, since she fell in front of her, she was her food. If she was dismembered and divided into more than 10 pieces, she would be able to eat for half a month. Night Spirit's eyes shone with a green glint as she raised her hands. With a crack, 10 sharp black nails pierced out. Low-level demonic soldiers and guards were usually unarmed. But to the devil race their strong bodies were the best weapons. Her black nails slowly extended towards the girl's fair and slender neck and sliced gently. She could feel her flesh being sliced open. Night Spirit was extremely excited and even trembled in excitement. However, before she could cut off the girl's head and drink a few mouthfuls of fresh blood, he felt a burning sensation on his fingertips. "Ah!" Shrill screams echoed throughout the valley. Clutching his wrist, Night Spirit rolled on the ground and wailed. The hand that had grown sharp nails and was about to take someone's life had already disappeared. Or rather, he was melted alive. Night Spirit was a demonic creature born from the heavens. It was born in an ancient battlefield filled with vengeful spirits, filth, blood, and cruelty. To be able to grow from the lowest level of demonic creatures without intelligence to a demonic soldier that could take human form and fight, the pain and suffering they had gone through was unimaginable for ordinary spirit cultivators. Even so, Night Spirit could not take it anymore. At this moment, the pain she was suffering was 100 times more intense than the most unbearable pain she had ever experienced. It wasn't just her hands that were melting. Even her magic core seemed to have melted a little, forming a gap. Her cultivation dropped from rank 5 MO weapon to rank 3. Chapter 4004. Night Spirit wailed for a long time before the piercing pain slowly disappeared. She crawled up from the ground, perspiring profusely. Demonic chi surged and the hand that had initially disappeared slowly grew out. However, the gap in the demon core and the cultivation that had dropped could not grow out anymore. This time round, Night Spirit's gaze towards the female corpse was filled with fear. What happened just now? Why did her fiend body and demon core melt? It felt as if he had encountered a higher-grade devil, and the other party's devil core had forcibly restrained his own devil core. However, the one before her was clearly a human. Furthermore, even if it was a higher-level fiend, it was impossible for the demon core to melt just by touching her, right? Night Spirit wiped the sweat off her forehead and approached carefully. Thereafter, she met with a pair of pitch-black, bottomless eyes. "Ah!" Night Spirit was so shocked that she fell to the ground. "Why, you're awake? You're not dead?" The female corpse, on the ground, did not move at all and merely looked at the sky quietly. Indescribable sorrow gradually flowed out of those beautiful obsidian eyes. "Hey, are you a stupid human or a fiend?" The person lying on the ground closed her eyes and sat up slowly. She scanned the surroundings slowly before asking, Where is this? The girl's voice was hoarse and exhausted, with a hint of coldness. However, it was surprisingly pleasant. This is the Demon Cloud Ridge, of course. The girl looked at her. Where is the Demon Cloud Ridge? Night Spirit was stunned and thought to herself, the Demon Cloud Ridge is the Demon Cloud Ridge. Where else can it be? Suddenly, she thought of something and raised her voice agitatedly. You don't even know the Demon Cloud Ridge? You're indeed a stupid human. Fufu, this is the hidden abyss. I don't know how you fell in. However, humans can forget about leaving this place for the rest of their lives if they enter without permission. Night Spirit said with a cold smile. However, the girl seemed to have caught on to an important point. Hidden abyss? She said hoarsely. This is the fiend's territory? Night Spirit rolled her eyes. Isn't that obvious? Where else can there be such rich and fragrant demonic chi other than the hidden abyss? Hee, of course, to you humans, it's fatal to inhale too much of this demonic chi. Suddenly, Night Spirit was stunned. The woman in front of him was clearly immersed in the thick fiend chi. Why did she not look uncomfortable at all? She didn't even use her spiritual power to resist? There was also the strange power that had almost melted his demon core. Are you a human or a demon? Don't tell me you're an abyssal that transformed from a spirit cultivator? The species and origins of the devil race were very complicated. However, those who could appear in human form were usually divided into two types. The other type was naturally nurtured by the heavens, and was born from the evolution of some filthy demonic creatures. The other was the human spirit cultivators. Due to various reasons they changed to the demonic path. This group of people were known as the Abyssal Clan. Some of the fallen devils were extremely powerful and sought after. However, there were also those who simply wanted to be unrestrained and do evil without restraint. These fallen evils were at the bottom of the hierarchy even among low-level demons, and were the most despised. The girl ignored her question and continued to ask in a slightly hoarse voice, how can I leave the hidden abyss? Didn't you hear a single word I said just now? As long as ordinary spirit cultivators fall into the hidden abyss, it's their misfortune. They can forget about getting out for the rest of their lives. Chapter 4005. Even if you're a fallen evil, you won't be able to get out unless you cultivate your magic core to the level of a demon lord. Haha, but I've never heard of a fallen evil who could cultivate their magic core to the level of a demon lord. Strictly speaking, the devil race didn't have a cultivation rank. Magic cores were divided into levels: Demon Soldier, Demon Guard, Demon Lord, Demon General, Demon Venerable, and Demon Emperor. But the level of a magic core did not represent the full strength of a demon, especially among the low-level demons. Demon Soldiers defeating Demon Guards and Demon Guards defeating Demon Lords. This happened frequently in the hidden abyss. The level of a magic core indicated how much demonic energy they could contain, as well as their body's self-healing ability. The girl frowned slightly. How do I know the level of my magic core? Night Spirit was stunned for a moment, then couldn't help but exclaim, damn, you really have a magic core in your body? Are you really a fallen evil? Why had Night Spirit never thought that the girl in front of her could be a heaven-raised demon? That was because low-level demons such as Demon Soldiers and Demon Guards could also transform into human forms, but they would always look different from real humans. For example, Night Spirit herself had two strange black lines at the corners of her eyes that slanted to her temples. It made her already ugly look even more hideous and strange. Her nails were naturally black and her skin was rough. It felt bumpy to the touch as if it was covered with scales. If she were in a human's eyes, she would be recognized even without divine senses. But what about the girl in front of her? Her skin was as white as snow. Her face was 100 times prettier than the girl in the drawing that fell from the hidden abyss. If she was a heaven-raised demon with such a perfect face, how high would her magic core be? The young girl turned a deaf ear to her fuss and repeated her question. How do I test the magic cores? Night Spirit originally wanted to mock the fallen evil's unpopularity in the hidden abyss. But when he met those pitch-black, cold eyes, his body instinctively stiffened. She didn't want to answer obediently, so she blurted out, there's a magic core testing area in every main city. You only need to pay 10 mabe to get tested. The girl frowned and was about to speak. Suddenly, a strange sound of high and low voices came from afar. Night Spirit's expression changed when he heard that voice. He straightened his body. How could this be? I actually met two groups of corpse puppets today? I can't be that unlucky, right? Her cultivation had dropped drastically and there wasn't a single bit of demonic chi left in her body. However, misfortunes never come singly in this world. Night Spirit's vision darkened as he looked at the corpse puppets that were surging over from all directions. The group she encountered just now had 10 of them. Now, there were more than 100 of them densely packed together, and they were scattered all over the place. It's over. It's over. I'm really dead this time. Night Spirit exclaimed with a pale face. At the same time, he could not help but glance at the girl beside him. Speaking of which, you're really unlucky. I don't see any devil chi fluctuations on you, so you must have become a fallen evil recently, right? It's a pity that no matter how many grievances and resentments you had in your life, you can only die with me in the Demon Cloud Ridge today. The girl's gaze swept over the roaring monster that was approaching. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.